able to hear me in the room? Can you bring your microphone closer?
Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Better?
Yep.
Okay.
Great. Start off with the roll call. Commissioner Bradshaw. Commissioner Cruz.
Rex is not signing.
Commissioner Falcone.
Okay.
Commissioner Grisby. Vice Chair Gardino.
Present.
Commissioner Lugo.
Present here on Zoom.
Commissioner Liu.
Here.
Commissioner Martinez.
Present remotely.
Commissioner Norton.
Present in person.
Why is it only coming up?
Commissioner Tavaloni. Chair Eager.
Here.
Senator Newman. Assemblymember Friedman. Madam Chair, we have a forum.
Thank you, Douglas. Want to give us the rules for the day?
Will do, thank you. Welcome to day one of the October 2023 CTC meeting in scenic Madera. Please note that because this is a two-day meeting, you will need to use a separate link to attend the meeting tomorrow. The links can be found on the first page of the meeting agenda on our website. Please use the questions tab if you have questions about this. The Commission's meeting agenda is located on our website at www.catc.ca.gov.
Okay, you need one? This is
All of the
only one.
presentations
You
for
need more
today's
than one?
meeting are also available on the Commission meetings page of our website under the View Download Meeting Materials tab. Any document the CTC creates can be translated into any language you need.
This one.
Simply email us at ctc@catc.ca.gov, and we will have them returned to you as quickly as possible. American Sign Language is being provided on the webinar for this meeting. You should see the translator on your screen. Live closed captioning is also available. Please select the Show Captions tab at the bottom of your screen. There are a number of language options available there to choose from. For our presenters, if you're on the agenda to make a presentation, please do your best to be succinct. Please remember to speak at a steady pace to allow our translating service adequate time for accurate translation. If you're presenting remotely, we hope that you will turn on your camera during your presentation, if you have one. For the members of the public, we welcome comments from the public as a part of each item at this meeting. For those attending in person, please submit a speaker slip to the clerk at the front of the room, that's me, to let us know you want to make a comment on an item. For those attending via Zoom, you should see the webinar control panel, likely located on the bottom of your screen. There you'll find the raise hand and Q&A tab. We encourage you to use the raise hand feature as early into the item as you can to give the system time to acknowledge you. Committee staff will let you know when it's your turn to make a comment. Alternately, you may use the Q&A tab to submit your comment. Please be sure to include the agenda item you are commenting on. Commission staff will read the comments on your behalf. As a reminder, each registered attendee is provided a unique link and phone number to access the webinar. These should not be shared with other participants, as this can create confusion for staff when calling on you to make comments. For all of our meeting attendees, please do your best to be concise. Please make sure that your comments add new information. If you agree with the comments of a previous speaker, simply make that statement. Please remember to speak at a steady pace to allow our translating service adequate time for accurate translation. Since we often have many speakers, we ask that you make your point in 3 minutes or less. If for some reason we have many speakers on any single topic, we reserve the right to limit comments to 1 minute if needed. Thank you for joining us today. We know your time is valuable, and we appreciate you sharing some of those with us.
Thank you, Douglas. And for any of you who are standing, there are some seats here that if you would like to sit down. If you want to stand there, that's fine too. Make it longer.
Rex
Before we
was
bring
chat,
up
but I
supervisor, I just felt the need to start us
Not
off
good.
with just really a little statement. Because in the last 30 days, maybe, there's been a lot of media attention, stories, rumors, things going around the city about the state of transportation. The work that we do here is so important for us to bring it back and really focus on the great work that we do at transportation community. There's things that are going on, but there's personnel issues.
You can tell by the
HR
look on his
issues,
face that he's
nothing
having a hard
that
time.
we deal with there, nothing that we're gonna be addressing. There are going to be, certainly issues that are brought up on whether or not the projects that we're funding are appropriate, and our staff is working on those diligently. The staff of the CTC works very closely with the Caltrans staff to make sure that we're moving things forward as appropriately. And I just wanted to bring us back to, when we're looking at our agenda, and we have 1,800 pages of things that we're moving forward. California, transportation is really about people, and what it is, our goal is to make sure that the people of the state of California get the best services possible. And that's what we do every day, that's what we do every day, that's what that staff does as they work through this. So I just wanted to bring it back to really have us focus on what's important here, and that truly is what the work that we're doing. So, with that, I would like to introduce Supervisor Georges. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and I sure appreciate those comments, and you're absolutely right, it's all about people. My name is Rob Boytrus, I'm the Madera County Supervisor. I serve on the Madera County Transportation Commission. I had the honor of serving as Madera's mayor for 6 years. I also chaired the San Joaquin Regional Policy Council, and also I work with the CTC on the Road Charts Technical Advisory Committee. So it's taking a deep dive into the world of transportation. I'd like to welcome you to our city, in our county, our community. We're the heart of the state. I know our commissioners know that, we've mentioned it several times, and they can probably even tell you what the center is, the center north. But that's what we're here, and we're so appreciative that you chose Madera as the site of this meeting for the California Transportation Commission. We feel a special bond and relationship with not only the CTC, but also with Caltrans and our local district, and as well as the state administration. We also recognize the enormity of the task and the importance
Okay, so
that the time commitment that you take on with what you do. Yesterday, we had a chance to tour our county and our city. We went to downtown Madera, and we got to take a look at a future site of the road that
okay,
what I said.
so I'm waiting to see if
Economic development. We had a great time, lots of food. I'm not sure how much was consumed.
we hear it.
Because there was a lot. But it was really good. We took a walk around downtown. After that, we took a look at a new side of the.
That mic is off.
That's fine. From there, we took
They're picking up.
drive down.
on this.
The Valley Children's Hospital. And it was a great presentation, and everybody got to see that it's a great hospital, but it's also very important to be able to get people to that hospital in an expedited fashion. So going down Highway 41 from the Central Coast and up and down Highway 99 from Sacramento County through Kern County. So it's really super important that it happens. That's community that so be able to have some great reputations. So we got a chance to introduce our county, our diversity, population, the economy, geography, as well as the unique sense of unity that we possess. We have challenges, I think, that are in the state, but those are more than offset with excellent opportunities. We were formed in 1893 in Fresno County. We were formed, our main industry was lumber and agriculture, it's still agriculture. Geographically diverse, Mammoth Mountain, those of you from Mammoth Mountain, but maybe never Madera. Part of Mammoth Mountain is actually Madera County on the backside, so you can ski right into Madera County. You can get lost. We have Yosemite to the north. Yosemite National Park actually cuts into Madera County, and then we have the main river, the San Joaquin Valley, San Joaquin River, to our south and east. So we have mountains and flatlands. In other words, Madera County is a microcosm of the San Joaquin Valley. And with that, I think we have a video we'd like to this time.
Madera County sits at the geographic center of California, and it acts as a true crossroads for millions of travelers coming and going each year. Our county is home to 2 federally recognized tribal communities located in the foothills of eastern Madera County, the North Fork Rancheria of Mono Indians of California and the Picayune Rancheria of Chukchansi Indians of California. Being situated between world-class destinations like Yosemite Valley and being among the world's top producing agricultural centers, Madera County and the state's transportation projects have the ability to get drivers off of the road and still connect people and goods faster, more efficiently, and with less greenhouse emissions than ever before.
Madera County, the #1 economic driver is agriculture, but up in eastern Madera County, it is definitely tourism.
Much like State Route 99 is to the valley, State Route 41 is a lifeline and bloodline for our foothill mountain communities.
We want to make sure that when people come downtown, they're able to see what Madera is really about, the culture, the excitement, the richness in our community.
It's no secret that the central San Joaquin Valley, and specifically Madera and our region around here, is growing. I get inquiries all the time from businesses wanting to relocate into the Central Valley. We obviously need to keep pace with that demand. Transportation projects impact the safety of our transportation corridors for its people, and it helps increase efficiency for goods movements.
If you go on Google Earth and you sort of pan out, you see the importance of Madera in the north-south rail service and the east-west rail service that's coming with high-speed rail. A focus of a lot of our work as we look at the relocation of the Madera station and then its ultimate build-out for the high-speed rail service. The new location is planned to be a multimodal hub near the community college campus, and so that multimodal connectivity really helps make it accessible to everyone in the community, and then from those accessing the station from the surrounding area.
We were working with our state agencies, again as a partner, to improve and overlay Highway 233 that
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
goes through our town. Currently, we work with our state agencies on a multi-modal plan, like bicycle and pedestrian lanes as well, and also that connect our eastern and western city of Churchilla.
We have a facility in eastern Madera County in our community of Oakhurst, California, known as River Parkway Road, which connects State Route 41 to School Road, which is where our elementary school, middle school, and high school in Oakhurst.
Before Measure T built that bridge, we only had one way out. If there was a fire, an emergency with our schools, there's a lot of homes back there as well. So now we have 2 ways out.
And then we have some of the local city projects. We have the completion of the Westbury Bridge that will kind of complete a loop system around our city. It'll make commerce a lot more efficient and effective, the movement of goods, and it'll provide a more direct route to our airport.
Affordable housing has been an issue in many cities across California. More specifically, trying to make it accessible to transit, accessible to downtown. Used as an example, the Esperanza Village, again, 48 units for affordable housing. But the most important thing is that with the city's partnership, we've been able to get some offsite improvements that connect folks to downtown.
One of the major projects is in our county on Highway 99 widening, adding an additional lane.
When you have pinch points, places on Highway 99 that are going from 6 lanes to 4 lanes and then back to 6 lanes, it's going to cause traffic to have to slow down very quickly. But that can be a matter of life and death.
The widening of State Route 99 helps increase safety. It reduces congestion. It also will help with efficiency and provide additional transportation options to our businesses, our farmers, our manufacturers in the area.
The collaborative projects happening between the state and Madera County meaningfully address transportation systems for the future of our people.
People always have a voice in terms of the projects they're looking for and the things that make a difference for them, because We report to the people. We serve the people of Madera County, and that's something we always need to remember.
From an economic development standpoint, it's important for local and state and federal agencies to work together. We're all stakeholders in this. We all have the vested interest of the community, residents, and people of Madera and Madera County.
If we need to get people to a station and get them on the train, they do need the highway and the road to get there. I think we do that together, right? Rail helps with the roadway needs helps with rail, and in partnership we can make that happen.
We have significant transportation needs. It's always exciting to see these much needed infrastructure improvements and enhancements to serve our residents.
When a community invests in itself and works with its state and federal partners, it helps to develop transportation corridors that are essential to our region.
The work that still needs to be completed on State Route 99 is vital to advance our region's goals. We need a strong partner in the state to see our vision become a reality.
Well, very good. I think you got a pretty good idea of what the issues are, some of the challenges, as well as the success stories that we've had. The city of Madera is considered a disadvantaged community, and therefore we're striving and planning to do something to improve the lives of our citizens. Those include improved education opportunities through STEM, education and trades, and attract industry that provides job opportunities in light tech and higher paying manufacturing. Finally, as we talked about here, transportation infrastructure is paramount. We must complete our approved projects and those in the planning stages that promote goods movement and people movement and recognize the most transportation that works from the area. We've talked about the importance of having good transportation routes to Valley Children's Hospital and up and down the valley. And I'd also like to point out our relationship that we have with other valley partners besides Caltrans and the CTC. That would include the counties of Tulare and Passaic, as well as all the other counties that participate in the Regional Policy Council. In conclusion, again, I'd like to thank the CTC for your outstanding support that has helped Madera move forward and for your commitment to the citizens of our community. Thank you very much.
I think we know more about Madera County than we know our own communities, right? Thank you so much, I appreciate it. Douglas, we will move to you for the approval of the minutes and commission meeting compensation.
Madam Chair, if it's okay if we could ask for comments on that last item, just in case.
Any public comment?
I do not see any public comment for this item at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll take tabs 3 and 4 together. Tab 3 is the meeting minutes from the August CTC meeting. Tab 4 is the commissioner meetings for compensation. Staff recommends your approval.
I move approval. Do I have a second? Second, Commissioner Cruz, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we will move to our
So I will project. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Supervisor Burgess. It's good to see you again. I know we've known each other for a long time. And thank you for welcoming us to Madera and your continued service on our road church. Thank you for the informative tour and reminding us that a well-functioning community, I really appreciate you always keeping their eyes on accessibility in the room as well as on the website, because I appreciate funding our team is under. So I'll go back to some of this, since it's just a capture of these and about the importance of maintaining a well-functioning transportation system. So yesterday we shared the Valley Children's Hospital amongst many of the projects within the county of Madera, and I appreciate that. But as we mentioned, the Valley Children's Hospital was really a reminder of the importance of maintaining an accessible, efficient transportation system. And hearing about the families arriving in time and those that did not is a somber like to start today by recapping the busy few weeks since our August meeting. Last month, the commission participated in the first tri-state meeting for the transportation commission of Oregon and Washington since 2019. This is a great opportunity to discuss common issues around transportation applications, emerging technologies, and road charge, and how we can work together across state lines to address them. The following week, we held a town hall meeting in Hollister. We'll hear more about the town hall later in our agenda, but I'd like to once again thank the San Diego Council of Governments and Assembly Speaker Robert Davis for hosting us and for giving us the opportunity to hear directly from community members about the transportation challenges their region face. The week after that, our interagency equity advisory committee held a meeting in Stockton and adopted its proposed charter and governance structure. I would congratulate all the members of the committee and we have Christine Williams here to speak about that. Further accomplishment, which we will hear about later today. All three of those meetings were organized and supported by our excellent planning and administrative staff and Casey Hendricks and all of their team members for the many hours of hard work they put into making this event successful. At the end of September, the commission staff attended the 2023 February 21 conference now. And last weekend, I attended the UCLA Virtual Warhead Symposiums. I appreciate the opportunities to gather with our transportation partners and exchange perspectives on how to tackle some of the complicated challenges we face as a state. As I said with Arrowhead, inclusion of diverse viewpoints and open collaboration are critical for us to create a future transportation system that works for each of us. Collaboration is at the heart of two efforts currently underway to commission where broad input from all kinds of stakeholders will be integral to our success. First, our Senate Bill 1121 State and Local Transportation System Needs Assessment is well underway, and staff will be presenting the draft interim needs assessment at our next meeting. Second, our draft Senate Bill 691, Clean Freight Corridor Efficiency Assessment, is currently out for public comment until October 26th. I encourage you all to take a look at that, but I promise you we have to our team. You and they're great working hard. We will hear from commission staff on the draft assessment later in the agenda. I want to highlight the extensive stakeholder working process that commission staff launched to develop the draft assessment, which included targeted proactive outreach to perspectives to the perspective identified in the authorizing legislation and incorporates feedback from a very wide set of viewpoints. For those stakeholders who didn't engage in the workflow process, we welcome their feedback on the draft as we finalize the assessments presented to the legislature in early December. Although our work on the assessment is nearly complete, I want to encourage all stakeholders to remain engaged as our recommendations are considered by the legislature and the administration and a specific projects supporting the 20 rates are implemented. Commissioner, I have a few brief program updates as well. The engagement process for the 2025 Active Transportation Program is underway. Just this morning, the ATP team has conducted, or to date, the ATP team has conducted 4 guidelines workshops so far, including a hybrid workshop held just this morning in Madera. The first branch workshop will be held next week in Tulare County. The budget proposal evaluation process is also wrapping up for the first cycle of the local transportation climate adaptation program. And I want to acknowledge Rebecca White and the Red Waters for conducting a very thorough and well-organized evaluation process. We expect to announce staff recommendations in early November. Later on our agenda, we have an action item for the local streets and roads program. 2023 marks the 5th consecutive cycle in which all 539 cities and counties have achieved funding eligibility, which allows them to receive about $1.4 billion for critical road maintenance projects. Looking at each jurisdiction verify their eligibility and compliance with program requirements requires a tremendous amount of staff work on the part of the commission staff, and I'd like to recognize Alicia Cooper, Celeste Sigas, and Leanne Davion for their efforts. I would also like to recognize Jerry Zamora for leading the commission's environmental planning functions, while our colleague Jose Carroll has been on extended leave. Jerry has been coordinating the environmental items since March on top of number 2, and we are grateful to her for stepping up during this time. Along with the staff of the commission, I'd like to congratulate Paul Olszewski on his elevation adjustments for the road commission. And brings over 20 years of experience in the public sector to this role. Next month, we'll participate in our second joint year of California Air Resources Board and the Department of Housing and Community Development. And in December, we'll be back on our side for our final regular commission meeting of 2023, as well as an equity commission meeting. As a reminder, that will also be the final commission meeting held on Wednesday and Thursday, as we will be transitioning to Thursday and Friday meeting days when we meet in the desk of January. To follow along some of the comments that Chair Eager has already made, I'd like to end my remarks today by throwing out the list of commitments we do to resources transportation funds. As Chair Eager has indicated, we will be making the things that are important and matter, as we're looking at all the trust around us, particularly safe places, and people in their future, and we will continue to ensure that deliver on our trust. Patients that we
Questions from commissioners?
Chair. I guess my question is, we have a timeline.
I think we have to wait and see. So there are a lot of different pieces, a lot of information that we're gathering. Some information we have, some information we don't have. We don't have the totality of the application. We have what's in the news articles.
Collecting information, and so if it's okay, I'd like to get back to you with that.
Because they don't like what you're saying.
Yeah.
Real nice, Douglas.
Well, I only had, so I only had two more words, really.
I mean, but we
They have
don't
to
know
hear
what
you
they
online.
heard and what they
Yeah.
didn't hear.
Yes.
The remote now works well enough, I didn't have.
So on remote, they can hear me and I just need to speak louder in-house? Is that what I need to do?
Yeah.
Okay, I can do that. So maybe I'll go back. The allegations that Commissioner Wu refers to in the press, we have what's in the press. There's varying things that we need to do to analyze what we know in the press. There are things that we don't know and we need to collect additional information. So as we find that information, if it's okay, I'd like to come back to you with a schedule and a time frame for that. But that's kind of where we are right now.
Thank you.
I'm
Any
not
other-
sure.
yeah.
So I will do this. We're parents. We can speak loud in-house. Am I being picked up remotely because the light isn't going up? My comment was going to be different, but just to add to that, and obviously some of this in a different department than this commission are personnel issues, that we will honor their process and that we all take very seriously. So those, it sounds like, are ongoing, and I will leave that there. I did want to comment, though, to our executive director. Brutal. I did want to comment, though, to our executive director and Dr. Lugo for representing us so well, most recently at Lake Arrowhead at the conference. We're fortunate to have you, as well as commissioners like Dr. Lugo that represent this commission and our transportation future so well.
Thank you.
Yes. Have any other comments or questions from commissioners for Director Taylor?
I'm coming off
Do you
mute.
have any public comment?
Oh, can you hear me in the room? This is Commissioner Lugo speaking.
Let's try this again. You're good? You can hear me? Yes. Okay. I believe, do we have any other commissioners that would like to ask any questions or any remarks for Director Taylor? Commissioner Lugo, if you would like to
tell us again what you were saying? We heard every other word, I think. So if you would like to repeat what you said, I would appreciate it.
Sure thing. Briefly, thanks, Chair Eager, and you all are hearing me now. I'm looking for some.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, excellent. Just wanted to add on to the thanks to Director Taylor and Chief Engineer Sobelman for making it down to the UCLA Institute of Transportation Studies Lake Arrowhead Symposium on behalf of our research institute. We were just so thrilled to have that expertise in the room adding to the conversation. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Lugo. Yes, Commissioner Falcone. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chair Eager. I just wanted to acknowledge Tanisha and staff for all the work on the Lausanne corridor. The Legislative Select Committee on the Lausanne that's chaired by Senator Catherine Blakespear. And I understand that Pro Tem Atkins was at a meeting in San Diego at Sandag where CTC was recognized for the support on the immediate issues related to Lausanne Del Mar Bluffs and in San Clemente, as well as support for the long-term alignment of the Lausanne corridor and the Del Mar Bluffs. So just wanted to acknowledge that Tanisha was down in San Diego and for all the hard work that the CTC has been putting forth on this really important project. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Falcone. Commissioner Norton.
Yes, I just wanted to add that Commissioner Grisby and I were also at the Lake Arrowhead Summit, and I think it's really important as we're looking at, and also with Mobility 21, that when we're at these events, it isn't just to sit in the audience. It's really to interact with all of you and to walk through a lot of the things that we've been talking about all this time. These are participatory, and it's wonderful to have Chair Eager, who is part of the panels on what we're doing with safety. It's always important to know that we're not just here meeting right here and talking about these issues. We're going out and we want to interact with you. So we're very excited for how much of a conversation this is happening, because we are in a transformative environment, and it's just a pleasure to be interacting with all of you in all of these settings so that we can have these conversations.
Thank you, Commissioner Norton. Yes, Commissioner Grisby.
Thank you, Commissioner Norton. Just wanted to add that it's one of the best convenings of transportation professionals that I've seen in a while, like Arrowhead was. And I was looking for some inspiration, and I think I got it from the group there. Great range of people, from interns to people working on their research proposals to folks who are involved in the legislature, et cetera. So great to hear all those perspectives and to learn from people about what's happening around the state and what the future could look like. And also want to give a big shout out to Tanisha for the great presentation, and everyone was talking about you at the end of that. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments or questions for Tanisha? The public comment.
Yes, we do have public comment. Like, first of all,
Sophia?
Yes, good afternoon, Commissioners. Sophia Africoa, Policy Advocate with the Coalition for Clean Air. California is currently facing an unprecedented climate crisis. Unless we rein in our GHG emissions, our state will face increased heat waves, droughts, wildfires, and rising sea levels, which will threaten the lives of millions of Californians. Heat waves have already contributed to an extra 395 deaths this year, and this number is projected to increase tenfold under moderate climate change scenarios unless something is done to address it. A report by the Strategic Growth Council found that California cannot meet its climate targets without also reducing vehicle miles traveled. Since then, the Air Resources Board has set a 25% VMT reduction goal within its scoping plan, and under the governor's executive order, the Climate Action Plan for Transportation Infrastructure was developed and called for promoting projects that did not increase VMT. And yet, we are no closer to achieving this goal than we were when we started. In fact, CARB found that lane miles have actually increased by 5% in the last 4 years. Last month, a top Caltrans staff member was demoted from her position for objecting to SHOP funds being used illegally to widen highways. At the same time, an RDC report found that 81% of state-funded transportation projects result in an increase of VMT or maintain the status quo. The answer to what's holding us back from addressing climate change is clear. Caltrans needs to stop investing in highway widening projects, especially since highway widenings have been found to increase congestion instead of reducing it and provide no lasting economic effects. We urge you, as the agency that oversees which transportation projects are funded, to ensure that Caltrans is held accountable for its role in halting progress made in achieving our climate targets. In particular, we ask for the CTC to take an active role in investigating whether Caltrans is using SHOP and other SB1 funding programs correctly and taking enforcement measures if Caltrans is found to be in violation. We also ask the commissioners to take a second look at any highway widening projects that are being proposed for funding and strongly consider whether those projects will actually help California or whether they will result in adverse effects to the work our state is doing on improving our climate and moving towards a more sustainable transportation system. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. Do we have any other public comment?
Thank you. Just second the commenter that just.
Okay, we're going to move back to Moise Mir.
Hi, Moise Mir with Climate Plan, calling in to echo my support for our colleague at Coalition for Clean Air's comment, Sophia's comment. Deeply concerned about the fact that BMT is increasing across the state. And the SB 150 report points to this, but we're seeing not a lot of traction and movement on Caltrans making changes in accordance with CAPTI. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment?
I see no other public comment at this time.
All right, thank you. We sort of mixed our commissioner reports in with the executive director report, but if we have any other commissioners that would like to make a statement now, now would be the time. Yes. Commissioner Falcone? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Vice Chair, for yielding. I just want to thank the County of Madera, the City of Madera, the MCTC, all the folks, sponsors that really put their best foot forward the last couple days in really educating those of us in the commission and CTC staff about all the projects and all the really intentional work that you're all doing to make these communities here thrive. I think the most, we heard about the importance of the 99 and the 145 and 41, of course, but I think the area that really struck me as a transformational area is the road diet project in downtown Madera and all the affordable housing that is going into that downtown. Really, I mean, you show me a really great downtown, and it really portrays what's happening in the community. And I know that there's a lot of work that folks in Madera are doing to make that happen. And so I want to applaud all of you that are working on that, and really thank you for such a very robust and full last couple of days, really educating us on your communities here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Falcone. Vice Chair Gardino.
Thank you, Chair Eager. I rarely comment under commissioner comments, but I feel moved to do so. 12 days ago, State Senator Ben Allen invited me to lunch in his Santa Monica district. And one of the two transportation items that he wanted to discuss was his deep concerns about safety on the Pacific Coast Highway.
And if you've ever driven that stretch of road, it's kind of a perilous journey, especially for cyclists, but for everyone. Last night, 4 students of Pepperdine University were killed on that highway, which strikes close to home for all of us. I feel an extra amount of grief as my daughter just started her freshman year at Pepperdine. And the first thing I did was reach out this morning to make sure she wasn't one of those 4 students. If it is acceptable to the chair and my commissioner colleagues, I hope we might close off today's hearing in the memory of those 4 students, their families and friends, and for the Pepperdine University community. And longer term, I'm meeting, I believe it's tomorrow, with Senator Allen's staff to hear more about their specific concerns about safety improvements on the Pacific Coast Highway, and we'll be reporting back to our staff and the commission.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And yes, our heart and prayers go out to the entire Pepperdine community and especially those students and their families. Commissioner Norton.
Yes, I wanted to also talk about pedestrian safety, and that over this last meeting time since our last meeting was able to ribbon cut for actually a Caltrans project, which was pedestrian crosswalk on Ventura Boulevard. It was an important pedestrian crosswalk, especially because this crosswalk was opened and launched in Holy Week for the Jewish community, and it connects to Chabad. This had been the site of pedestrian death, and this crosswalk took 10 years to deliver. What's exciting about the opportunities with our federal funding is that now there's been an increase in federal funds to do way more of these crosswalks, to do them in an expedited manner, and to make sure that we are focused on pedestrian safety, especially on these corridors. It is, as my colleague, Vice Chair Gardino said, that pedestrian safety, bike safety, Caltrans employee safety, and driver safety is so important. And it was wonderful to see this complete, but I think we also have an opportunity to meet this moment with federal funds and our state funds to do more, to do it more often, and to do it quicker. And I just appreciate the leadership at Caltrans and CalSTA and our CTC staff to make biking and walking a position of importance. And it was a pleasure to be there.
Thank you, Commissioner Norton. Do you have any other? Yes, Commissioner Cruz.
I appreciate the comments on safety, if I could work this here, especially as it relates to pedestrian and bike safety. But I also want to point out construction zone safety, which is on this serious increase. And we've heard from a local Caltrans representatives about 4 or 5 accidents just over the last month. We really see all the infrastructure and improvements on our road and highways, but we have to be real cognizant of the folks who work on those systems as well, who want to go home to their families. But I know Caltrans is doing a good job in improving safety, but we really have to highlight it to the public to slow down and be careful when they traverse our roadways and highways that are under construction. But I also want to echo some of the comments made by Commissioner Falcone about the hospitality that the county of Madera, city of Madera has really rolled out to the CTC. It's always a great opportunity, and it's really a benefit of being on the commission to really go out to different parts of the state and see how our transportation network operates and what we can do as a commission to improve the safety and operational and efficiencies of the different parts of the state that rely on our system. Our state is unique as it is beautiful, and our strengths really lie in our differences, not our similarities. And we have to be cognizant of our investments. Reduction VMT is a great goal, but we also have to consider the fact that people use our system differently in the Central Valley. And that, we have to be cognizant of our EV deployment, the agricultural sector when we make investments. I think we all share the similar goal to make California competitive, but also be environmentally friendly. So I want to thank the folks of Madera for really showing us how this city moves and really provides, it's a breadbasket for the country. And I appreciate the opportunity to see it firsthand.
Any other commissioners? All right, do we have any public comment?
I do not see any public comment for this item at this time.
Thank you. And we will move to CalSTA Undersecretary Mark Tollefson. Welcome.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Chair Eager. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here. I know it's been a few meetings since I've had the opportunity to be before the commission here. So great to be back. The secretary unfortunately is traveling today, but sends his regards. So we have a lot of great updates to share today, but I did want to first acknowledge two recent losses that we've been dealt. So one, the passing of Senator Dianne Feinstein really hit our state hard. Senator Feinstein was a force to be reckoned with, and she made history for really trailblazing as the first woman in multiple impactful leadership roles. And one of her last meaningful actions at the end of last month, together with Senator Padilla, she announced 6 grants awarded to California rail projects by USDOT totaling $290 million, really significant. But her lifetime of public service will absolutely have a lasting impact on the state and the nation. So I wanted to at least acknowledge that. And we are also devastated by the fact that Manhattan Beach Police Department motorcycle officer Chad Swanson was killed in line of duty, resulting from a crash on the 405 freeway on his way to work. So that happened earlier this month. Today, a funeral and procession occurred this morning. So just reiterating some of the comments, by our commissioners, safety remains a top priority for us at CalSTA, for, Caltrans, every person using, California's roads. And our hearts really go out to the law enforcement community as well as Officer Swanson's family. So I wanted to start off with that. But I will jump into our regular updates. And I don't know if looks like I have slides. Great. So we can move to slide 2. So in our own CalSTA office, we have 2 recent personnel changes that I wanted to highlight. So first, congratulations to Marcy Caboti, who was recently appointed, so in August, by Governor Newsom in her dual role as our Deputy Secretary for Transportation at CalSTA and new Chief Information Officer at Caltrans. So Marcy has served in that role as Deputy Secretary of Technology since 2015 at CalSTA. And just an incredible accomplishment for her, notably in a field that's historically not been made up of many female executives. So congrats to Marcy. Let's move to slide 3. And then a congratulations also to Susan Summercamp, who was appointed by Governor Newsom this past month as the special assistant to the secretary at CalSTA. So Susan has served as the director's speechwriter at Caltrans for more than 2 years. Spent the last year at CalSTA in that same role for Secretary Omashakin. She'll continue to serve in that role, but with an expanded responsibility. So with her promotion, she'll also include external engagement, research, and attending meetings on the secretary's behalf. So you'll likely be seeing a lot more of Susan. So we're excited to have her permanently as part of the CalSTA family. We can go to the next slide. And actually, one other thing just to mention, some other good news, the posting for our Deputy Secretary for Equity and Workforce should now be live later this week. So we're really excited about that. So I'll just say, feel free to spread the word to anyone who might qualify and is eager to really make a big difference here at CalSTA on California's transportation equity decisions and policies. So we had a lot of conversation about safety. So I did want to highlight a few things. So the National Highway Transportation or Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, last month released its early estimates of traffic fatalities for the first half of 2023, estimating that traffic fatalities declined for the 5th straight quarter. An estimated 19,515 people died in motor vehicle traffic crashes, but this did represent a decrease of about 3.3%, which is pretty significant compared to the first half of 2022. Another report from the National Safety Council sparks additional optimism. So California was one of 9 states where traffic death projections declined by more than 15% compared to last year. Notably, we had the 6th largest decline in the country. So we saw a projected 17% decrease, or 330 fewer people killed in the first half of this year compared to 2022. So a lot of great work happening from this commission, CALSTA, Caltrans, Office of Traffic Safety, as well as CHP, to really help drive those numbers down. Lots of work to obviously still occur, but we're seeing some progress, which is great. And then OTS, our Office of Traffic Safety, is really taking advantage of the historic federal highway investments that we have. So they have recently, I think, have 442 grants totaling more than 127 million to go out as part of their 2024 to 2026 triennial highway safety plan. Those grants will aim to quickly deliver safety improvements such as traffic calming measures, wrong way prevention signage, pedestrian refuge islands, as well as crosswalks. And all of these investments, particularly on the state side, as well as our from the federal government, some really good news that the California State Auditor has removed transportation infrastructure from their high risk rating. So we're really excited to finally see that happen, because we've been on that list for probably well over a decade. Some good news there. Let's go to the next slide. So climate action. So a lot of conversation today, some of the remarks as the chair led off, really talking about a lot of the activity and conversations regarding transportation, as well as our climate goals. I will report that we're getting close to completing our CAPTI annual report, which we will plan to present the drafts at the upcoming joint CARB CTC HCD meeting in November in Riverside. So we really want to just highlight a lot of the great progress on CAPTI implementation. And then I hope that we as a group here can really acknowledge the journey that we've been on. I feel like there has been a lot of significant progress that's been made. As our upcoming report will show, we're on track to complete implementation of all of the CAPTI actions listed by the end of this fiscal year, well ahead of the 3 to 7 year window that we originally committed to. So this was just in the past 2 years. We still have a lot of work to do, but really CAPTI has been that catalyst for significant change, and we are starting to see a lot of our projects be viewed a lot differently. As Commissioner Falcone had mentioned earlier, we recently were down in San Diego. Secretary Omashakin actually recently met with Orange County Transportation Authority, as well as the Losan Rail Authority, and visited the Losan corridor, really discussing climate change and the impacts of the highly traveled 6-county rail corridor. It's the nation's second busiest, really the poster child for climate impacts on our rail transportation infrastructure. And we had last week kicked off our first Losan Regional Rail Corridor Working Group meeting, which was hosted in the Sandag building. A lot of good conversation. This really built off of some of the work that we did back in 2020 from then Secretary Kim. But we're really excited to get elected officials, stakeholders together as we look to bring this group together to really figure out coordination in this important corridor. The other big news that I'm sure everyone saw, really great for the state, but U.S. Department of Energy last week awarded $7 billion for 7 clean hydrogen hubs across the nation. So yes, excellent. So California will get up to $1.2 billion for regional clean hydrogen hub. It obviously aligns with our continuous climate goals to clean air and protect it from future damage. It really speaks to the strong partnership with the federal government through our IIJA funding, which continues to play a massive role in our acceleration towards our clean energy goals, growing California's clean energy workforce, and really improving our environment, air quality, and the lives of millions of Californians. And then lastly, we've been having a lot of discussions on our SB 125 guidelines. So those final guidelines are out on the street. We are really thankful for the 5.1 billion of flexible transit resources provided by the governor and the legislature. And we really appreciate the feedback of everyone who's reached out to us, through, individual conversations, through webinars over the past, 2 months or so as we develop those guidelines. We are really looking forward to between now and December 8th, offering, virtual meetings with agencies to discuss the program, discuss the program requirements. So please reach out to us if you'd like to, schedule some one-on-ones there. SB 125 also established the Transit Transformation Task Force, which will be led by CalSTA. We're working on creating, that structure and anticipate our first convening by year's end. So be on the lookout for that. And through that effort, we look to develop policy recommendations to grow transit ridership, improve the transit experience, as well as address long-term operational needs. Let's go to our next slide. And then equity. This was touched on briefly earlier, but at the most recent EAC meeting, our Equity Advisory Committee, we adopted a living charter or the governance structure for the committee. So great news there. It's a key milestone for this group as they move forward. Next steps is, in November, we're expecting an EAC only meeting where they will elect their officers. So a chair, vice chair, and administrative committees. Thanks to the work of, the Caltrans team as well as the CTC team for really getting that stood up. And then we'll have a December executive meeting that will also be attended by the secretary as well as many of our commissioners here. Caltrans just this last week hosted their 3rd annual DBE Summit. I'm assuming that Director Tavares will talk a little bit more about that, but had a great turnout. And this is just one of the many strategies that we have to continue to grow the number of small businesses, in the state, and really appreciate Director Tavares and the team for continuing to make small businesses a priority. And then for Clean California, excited to report out the continued momentum with that initiative. So we recently announced 114.5 million of grants. That'll fund 60 projects throughout the state to continue beautifying and revitalizing public spaces, including transit centers. And I've been really excited just to see many of these projects breaking ground now. A lot of ribbon cuttings, really seeing the impacts of some of these projects in our communities, and many of those communities that haven't really seen a lot of investment in the past. Let's go to the next slide. Then, as noted earlier, California received $290 million from the federal CRISI program. So notably high-speed rail, and I know a number of folks here got to tour some of the alignment yesterday, but high-speed rail received its 3rd grant from USDOT. They received nearly $202 million to complete 6 grade separations in the city of Shafter. And this is the largest award the authority has received since the passage of IIJA, and one of the largest discretionary awards received by the state. And these grade separations are the first to be funded actually outside of the active construction underway on the 119 miles in the Central Valley. So this does really signal a strong federal commitment to advance high-speed rail between Merced, Fresno, and Bakersfield. Another milestone for high-speed rail was reached. So high-speed rail has 10 years under its belt of collaborative partnership with the women and men in the construction trades. So the partnership is possible thanks to the establishment of the authority's Community Benefits Agreement, which was signed and executed in 2013, really promoting employment and business opportunities during construction while advancing training opportunities to targeted and disadvantaged workers. And we're hoping to close in on 12,000 jobs created from high-speed rail fairly soon. And then as part of that, really wanted to highlight some of the work also happening in the Central Valley with the Central Valley Training Center graduation. 17 students just graduated earlier this month from their pre-apprenticeship program. And since 2020, there's now been 151 graduates from the program, which provides students with industry specific certifications and assists with job placement. So lots of great work continuing to happen here in the Valley. So with that, I will conclude my remarks.
Thank you, Undersecretary. Yes.
I just wanted to not only note about the hydrogen hubs and 1.2 billion out of 7 billion nationally is a pretty good deal. But I wanted to highlight something about Clean California, and that program is actually putting so many people to work. And especially in the LA area, $10 million has gone towards chrysalis. People who are homeless and formerly homeless, are unhoused, are working on major projects, and it's getting people that first leg up back into the workforce, and it's really making an enormous difference, not only in how the state looks, but how the state works. And so I really, as you were talking about job creation, to talk to you about the appreciation of that.
Thank you, Commissioner Norton. Have any of our other commissioners that have questions for the Undersecretary? Yes, Vice Chair Gardino? No?
No, I was just thanking Mark.
Oh, that was a thank you. Do we have any public comment?
I see no public comment at this time for this item.
All right, thank you. And we will move on to Caltrans Director, Director Tavares.
Thank you, Chair Eager. I'm Tony Tavares, Caltrans Director. It's wonderful to be back in the Central Valley. Many of you may know that I grew up here just a few short miles away in the small town of Kerman, spent much of my childhood there. And so I had the opportunity to catch up with Supervisor Poitras earlier before the meeting. It was wonderful to see him again. Chair Eager, you mentioned at the beginning of the meeting that what's the reason we do the work we do? And it's about people. It's always about people. And Caltrans is a people-focused, people-first organization. That's everything we do is centered on people. We also remain steadfast and fully committed on climate action and the goals of the state. I stand fully committed on equity. I stand fully committed on continuing the direction the department has put into place, and we will continue to do so. At the same time, we're maintaining and operating a system that's safer, more reliable and accessible, and again, more climate resilient. We recently announced our Cycle 1 Climate Adaptation Planning Grants. Next slide, please. And we awarded almost $32 million to local and regional governments. And we have already announced the second application for Cycle 2 on October 5th for approximately another $39 million worth of grants. And applications are due in January of 2024. These programs, they award 50% of the funds to underserved communities. And we have set aside 10% of those funds for California tribes as well. Later in the meeting, you'll be hearing from Marlon Flournoy, our Caltrans Division Chief for Transportation Planning, and he'll be presenting on the Federal Protect Program, the draft Caltrans Resilience Improvement Plan. Next slide. We heard about the hydrogen hubs. Well, last week, Caltrans signed a historic $80 million contract to deliver the first zero-emission hydrogen intercity passenger trains in North America, and they'll be coming to California. That's exciting. In addition, since April, the state has invested over $1 billion in additional zero-emission transportation investments. Next slide. Equity. We heard a little bit about the DBE Summit. It was attended by close to 300 small businesses around the state. It was held in the Bay Area. I'm excited. Our department has reached a milestone. Not only are we exceeding our DBE federal goal, but we have reached just under $1 billion dedicated contracts to disadvantaged business enterprises in California. That's huge. That's more today than $100 million we were doing in 2009. So that's a huge accomplishment. And I thank my team. I thank everyone at Caltrans for doing that work and ensuring that we put small businesses, disabled business enterprises forefront of the work that we do.
Also want to talk about our new Office of Transportation Equity and Community Engagement. This office is responsible for developing meaningful community engagement through our plans, our project delivery, and our project initiations. Each district, all 12 of our districts, will have a community engagement coordinator to help in the strategic communication and also reaching out to community leaders, community-based organizations, advocacy groups, and all our stakeholders to ensure that every voice is heard moving forward as we deliver projects. We're also developing a Caltrans public engagement system. It's a tool that will be a statewide web-based system for the public to easily provide input on Caltrans plans and projects, and for Caltrans staff to collect, categorize, measure, and respond to public comments. This tool will also include a language translation feature for the public, and will have analytics for Caltrans staff to efficiently map and analyze comments when they are received. When the tool is up and running, we would be happy to bring it to the commission and provide a tutorial, if you will, of the tool. Next slide. Safety. Before I get into this project, I just want to mention, yesterday I spent the day at the ITS California in Southern California, and we heard from Commissioner Gardino about the tragedy that happened earlier this morning in Southern California in Santa Monica. We had a complete focus on using technology, using every tool we have available to eliminate deaths and serious injuries on state and local roadways. Our goal is to get to zero, and no other number is acceptable. And we are continuing to put every tool available to us to ensure that we do that and we get to that point. But we need your help. We have a lot of regional partners here. We have a lot of transportation agencies. We need your help working together in partnership to eliminate, especially our most vulnerable road users, those who walk, those who bike, those who use transit. They are our focus. This is a project that's in South Lake Tahoe, and it's an example of what we are trying to do, working with our partners throughout the state. It's on US 50. It's improving safety for bicyclists and pedestrians. It's a $22.4 million project that is providing enhanced bicycle lane markings, improved signage, pedestrian hydrant beacons, continuous roadway lighting along US 50 from State Route 89 to the Pioneer Trail. And if you've ever been in South Lake Tahoe, you'll probably know where that location is. This project's going to go out in construction in the 24-25 fiscal year. So we look forward to coming back and showing some photos of the project when it is completed, and hopefully having some great feedback from the community as well. Next slide. A few changes in our organization recently. I want to start from the right, work my way to the left. Matt Rocco was recently appointed by Governor Newsom as our Assistant Deputy Director for Public Affairs at Caltrans. For the last 17 years, Matt has been with Caltrans. He's helped us promote and raise awareness on the department's core 4 foundational principles of safety, equity, climate action, and economic prosperity. And Matt has overseen many public education campaigns for safety, our stormwater pollution awareness campaign, and he's been very integral in our Clean California campaign. Mario Orso is our acting District 12 director. He was recently appointed a few weeks ago. He comes from District 11, where he's been serving for the department for 32 years in the San Diego region. And he has been responsible for the delivery of the Otay Mesa East Port of Entry and the State Route 11 projects, which will continue to ensure that California thrives economically and remains the 4th largest economy in the world. And to the right of Mario there on the photo, or to the left, Michael Webb is currently our District 2 acting director. He comes to us from his previous role as the Deputy Director for Maintenance and Operations in District 2. He has over a decade of experience in planning, design, project management, construction, and public and private experience as well. So I'd like to just congratulate each three of these gentlemen and look forward to their success here at Caltrans. Next slide, please. So want to talk, just kind of ties into the safety as well. And I've said before, especially during the January storms, that Caltrans is at its best when nature is at its worst. These are two examples. The weekend right after the August commission meeting, Hurricane Hillary made landfall in California on August 20th. We had significant damage in eastern San Diego County, Imperial County, Riverside County, San Bernardino County, Inyo counties. And our maintenance team, again, worked nonstop around the clock to ensure that people were safe, to ensure that first responders could get to where they needed to get to. And in the city of Palm Springs, assisting our local agency partners to ensure that the first responders, ambulance folks could get to the hospital as well. Interstate 10, State Route 58 were completely inundated with flood waters and mudslides. Our teams were able to get those roadways reopened in less than 48 hours. So kudos to all of the Caltrans maintenance team out there. And also just something that not many people know, that our Caltrans professionals, planners, engineers get tasked to sometimes take on sometimes very emotional type of situations where they're asked to assist other states and sometimes other countries. We've all heard about the aftermath of the devastating Maui wildfires in Lahaina. And our team was tasked to go to Lahaina to help with search and rescue teams to basically inspect the area and allow our first responders who were there to enter homes and buildings that were partially burned. They did the first inspections to allow them to move into those areas. These are the same, many of these individuals were the same individuals who went up to the Ferndale earthquake in late December 2022. And so kudos to the Caltrans team, both the maintenance team, both our professional service teams that go out and go.
Tell us about CISA.
Yeah, Commissioner Liu, thank you for that question on CISA. So my team and I have been working with Executive Director Taylor and her staff on ensuring that we have a very robust and collaborative process in delivering the CISA tool. It's being delayed a few months. It'll be coming a draft to this commission probably early 2024. And then we're going to have it finalized by the May-June meeting at the latest.
Thank you.
And if I could just add something to what Tony said, I just want to thank Tony. This commission has tasked me with working collaboratively across our agencies, and this is a place where we are pushing forward in that direction, and I want to appreciate Caltrans for recognizing our ask.
Thank you. Do we have any other commissioners that have comments or questions for Director Tavares?
Commissioner Lugo online got a question for Director Tavares, if you can hear me.
We can, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Director Tavares, for the report. I had a question about the Office of Equity and Community Engagement. Is that a renaming of the existing Office of State Planning, Equity and Engagement, or is it a new office? I was just wondering about that.
So that is a new office that's been established in Caltrans.
And within the Division of Transportation Planning. Okay, and do you have a staff lead on that office yet, or is that being determined still?
Well, we do have some folks that are in the office, but as far as who's going to be the lead of that office, we're still going through that process.
Got it. Okay, thanks so much for the update.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lugo. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Okay, thank you. Are we finally on number 9? Woohoo! We're finally at number 9. Okay. Federal Highway Administration, Acting Administrator, Elisa Canovo.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to provide an update today. I'm Alyssa Kanov. I am the Acting Federal Highway Administrator of the California Division. Pleasure to join you today. In the interest of time, I'm going to hit a few highlights. I'll start with federal funding. We closed out the year successfully in FY23 with an unprecedented level of funding and obligated all of the funding with the assistance of our state and local partners at the end of the year, including over $700 million in additional funding through August redistribution. That was the largest amount in the nation by far. So really appreciate all of the partnership that went into the end of year obligations that we were able to maintain an inactive rate. To make sure that we're current on our billing of our projects, we were able to maintain an inactive rate of 1%, which is less than the target of 2%. So very successful year and really, again, appreciate the partnership. We have kicked off federal fiscal year 24 by issuing for federal highway nationwide $61 billion for 12 formula programs, including the Federal Aid Highway Program, Bridge Formula, and the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure, NEVI formula funding as well. And over $5 billion of that funding comes to California. That funding is subject to an annual limitation on obligations through the annual appropriations process. So as I'm sure you're aware, Congress has enacted a continuing resolution or a CR that covers the period of October 1 through November 17th. And so we have distributed the 13% of the annual funding that is available for the next 48 days, and projects we will be limited to that limit to that obligation limitation during the period of the CR, and then that will be adjusted through further appropriations legislation moving forward. So the obligation limitation for California is about $536 million for now, so we can kick off the year strongly. In addition to the annual funding, an emergency relief, quick release announcement was made earlier this month in response to Tropical Storm Hillary and to assist local agencies that had road damage from the tropical storm. Moving on to bipartisan infrastructure law grant awards. Right now, we're really focusing, especially in the division and nationally, on executing grant agreements for the awards that have been made, and especially for new programs where we're kicking off new programs. There's new terms and conditions, and appreciate all of the working relationships that we have with our partners. We received 50 Safe Streets for All grants this year in the first round, and nearly 40 of those grants were actually executed by the end of the fiscal year. So a lot of good partnership and work going into that to get those safety funds into the communities. And we're also working on finalizing grant agreements for the Reconnecting Communities program. And so we're working closely with our partners in the city of Pasadena and others throughout the state to move those grants forward as well. In terms of notices of funding opportunity that are available and open now, hopefully you've all seen the Electric Vehicle Charger Reliability and Accessibility Accelerators, which provides $100 million to repair existing but non-operational chargers. And that notice of funding opportunity or NOFO closes November 13th. And then also last month, the NOFO for the large bridge projects under the Bridge Investment Program, $10 billion available nationally. And these are for large projects that are $100 million or greater, and that is open until November 27th. Another announcement that was posted on October 3rd was a Federal Register notice regarding the Federal System Funding Alternative Advisory Board. And this advisory board was established under the National Motor Vehicle Per Mile User Fee Pilot under bill. And this advisory board will assist with providing the US DOT Secretary of Transportation with recommendations related to the structure, scope, methodology of and methodology of the National Motor Vehicle Per Mile User Fee Program. So just calling it the National Pilot for User Fee. There's also to provide input on public education and awareness campaign and developing reports to Congress. So the membership is outlined in a charter. There's a Federal Advisory Committee Act charter that has been published, and the advisory board will be 15 members. And nominations for that are open until November 17th. And then I will mention, let's see, one more thing from the Inflation Reduction Act. There was $2 billion that was established for federal highway for a low carbon transportation materials grants program. And we've recently launched a new website with information about the program and eligibility. And that program is going to be open soon for states and MPOs, tribes can all participate in that program. And that we're anticipating more information in the winter of this year. So stay tuned for more information on those opportunities. And then my last update is a personnel update. Just wanted to mention that hot off the press, Division Administrator Vince Mamano has announced his retiring after 30 years. 30 years and over 30 years in federal highway, over 15 years in California.
We thought he had retired years ago.
This is official. So I just want to say Vince is an incredible leader, colleague, and friend. He is here in the audience today, can't stay away. So if you hopefully you get a chance to offer congratulations or call him a quitter, like he would do to us. So.
Well, thank you, Melissa. We want to also acknowledge all of the wonderful work that Vince has done with the CTC, for the state of California, for the federal government. I know we tease each other back and forth, Vince, talking about whether or not you're necessary. But the truth is, yeah, that's a whole different one. The truth is, you've been a wonderful partner. And so we would like to acknowledge the years of hard work and appreciate that.
That's it, I quit.
Go out in glory. So do we have any comments or questions for Alyssa? Do you have any public comment? Okay, thank you. Then we will move on to tab 10, Regional Agencies Moderator, Rich Murphy. There he is.
Not going to touch a thing. I'm going to give you some minutes back while we're still connected. Rich Murphy, your moderator for the Regional Transportation Planning Agencies. I work for the San Luis Obispo Council of Governments. Good to see everybody today. It's really mind-boggling the level of coordination that goes on between the Caltrans staff and the CTC staff getting us to this point in these meetings. The business agendas are so packed, 133 book items, level of coordination on these funding programs. It's just an excellent job, and we're going to stay cool through this. Yesterday we had a technological issue with our meeting at the RTA group, at the Madera County Transportation Commission. And I asked the vice moderator to edit out some profanity that I think I probably had. 20 minutes that meeting. But nonetheless, thank you. And Vince, congratulations. We're going to miss you. This is nice to have you. And Mr. Tavares, your staff, impeccable with working with us at the regional level. Customer service truly a focus, and equipping us with all the necessary tools to implement the goals and objectives established by the state policymakers. It's really fantastic. And I've been doing this business a little while, and so it's nice to see this all come together near the end of my run sometimes. And so with your permission, maybe I can bequeath a straight edge for my dome, if you allow, because I know it's a commitment to do. And then just to hit on a few quick topics with respect to policy matters. We heard from the director that the Caltrans system investment strategy has been put on a purposeful pause, if you will. That's the language we use in San Luis Obispo, been on a purposeful pause. And we greatly appreciate that. There's been a considerable amount of coordination, and it's been very effective working directly with the regions, some of the larger mega regions. I know you're getting a lot of good feedback and input, and so that pause allows us the opportunity to continue to kind of digest the materials and to offer some insightful comments along the way. And if I could just jump into the various funding programs and process. The STIP is obviously in development. We're all working and in the throes of producing our RTIPs for December 15th, which is the deadline. We continue to appreciate the flexibility that's built into the STIP program as it relates to some of the local and regional transportation needs. So with that, we're just continue to express our gratitude. And then we're also looking forward to seeing the ITIP come out, the original component of the STIP for our review. We have it November 1st and November 8th. Oh, or you have it November 1st and November 8th of the meeting. And we look forward to providing comments then. And then with respect to the active transportation program, which is in development, the guidelines, that's been very helpful to have that update provided to us yesterday at our meeting. And I will say this morning, the workshop that your staff has put on, their third workshop on the ATP program, the hybrid approach, I think they had 0 technological issues. So congratulations to your team this morning. And it was nice to hear and get to know Beverly through that process. That was a nice intro that you guys did for everybody. And it's because it does come down to the relationships of the people, and we take note of that. So as you focus on the fearless and confident, please be mindful of those that aren't so confident out there on the transportation network. And I know we're doing all great work. And then lastly, on project delivery and implementation, your local assistance staff remain impeccable working with. The fact that $718 million was received in the August redistribution, I mean, you're aware that Texas fell in the second position. It was kind of the Christian McCaffrey Brock Purdy beat down of Dallas Cowboys. So way to go, Caltrans in the back room. And the level of success is truly a testament to their professional commitment to all that we do and working with the locals. And so just to wrap up, the RTPA group is resurrecting a federal program subcommittee to reach out directly and collaborate with the local assistance team and headquarters, and we look forward to being engaged on project delivery issues from that perspective. And happy to pass the baton back to you.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Murphy? We have any public comment? Okay, thank you. Then we will move to Self-Help Counties Coalition Executive Director Keith Dunn. We hope. Oh, I missed Rural Counties Assistant. Oh, Nafili, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Nafili Barrett, Chair of the Rural Counties Task Force and Executive Director of the Mendocino Council of Governments. The Rural Counties Task Force last met on September 15th. At that meeting, we discussed and received reports from Caltrans and CTC staff on a wide range of issues facing our 26 rural counties, including the state budget, 2024 STIP, the SB 1121 Needs Assessment, the Active Transportation Program, and LTCAP. As always, thank you to staff for your time meeting with the RCTF and keeping us informed and engaged. At our September meeting, we also received a preliminary report on the Rural Induced Demand Study, which is an RCTF-sponsored project being conducted by the consultant team of DKS and GHD with an independent researcher from Cal Poly and administered by the Nevada County Transportation Commission. The RCTF funded this project due to a lack of research related to induced demand in a rural context. With more emphasis on VMT in criteria for state programs, in addition to requirements of SB 743, we wanted to ensure that the analysis of induced demand appropriately considers the rural context of projects and identifies how to appropriately analyze projects in rural corridors to ensure that they aren't being unfairly disadvantaged. A review of the existing research and literature supported the importance of project context and indicated that for induced demand to result or be a concern, significant levels of congestion must be present in the highway corridor, resulting in unmet demand, and improvements must reduce travel times by 10 to 15 minutes. In many rural corridors, these factors aren't present or applicable, with the focus of improvements often on safety, operations, goods movement, or evacuation. As part of the project, sensitivity testing of NCST induced demand calculator tool commonly used to analyze VMT and induced demand for transportation projects was conducted. The preliminary results show that the tool consistently overpredicts future VMT for projects in rural areas, including those within MPO boundaries to which the tool currently applies. The tool does not take project context into consideration, which is a significant concern, particularly for projects where the causal factors often associated with induced demand aren't present. This is true when analyzed over 3, 10, and 20-year projection periods. Our preliminary takeaway from these initial results are that induced demand is highly dependent on the project location and corridor context. And while certain rural projects, if causal factors are present, may in fact induce demand, in many other cases, it's highly unlikely. That's why it's critical that these projects be analyzed correctly to ensure that concern over induced demand is not unfairly disadvantaging rural projects proposed pursuant to other state goals, particularly those related to safety and emergency evacuation. We look forward to being able to provide more detailed information on the study to the Commission in the future, including recommendations for potential revisions to state guidance related to this matter. A draft report is expected in December. Once the study is final and recommendations are available, we encourage consideration of the final results in state programs and guidance documents, including updates to the transportation analysis under CEQA and transportation analysis framework, which are currently in development. In addition to the RCTF meeting in September, we also had an RCTF special meeting with Caltrans earlier this month to receive information and comment on the development of the next iteration of the Caltrans System Investment Strategy, or CSIS. While we ran out of time in that meeting to address all issues of interest to RCTF members, it was an opportunity to ask questions and discuss some of our ongoing concerns. This next iteration of CSIS will feature a significant shift to use of quantitative metrics. We've asked that Caltrans test these metrics on projects in rural areas. We're looking forward to continuing our conversation with Caltrans on this important issue and learning how the proposed metrics might affect critical projects in rural California. We appreciate Caltrans' efforts to specifically include the rural counties in development of these updates, as well as the additional time being provided in this update for more engagement. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Nafili. Do you have any comments or questions from commissioners? Do we have any public comment? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Now we will move to Keith Dunn.
Thank you, Commissioner Ager. I appreciate the opportunity to provide a few brief comments. I will state, self-help counties had a successful legislative session. I'll just talk really briefly about our sponsored legislation, which now allows for progressive design build for both local streets and roads and also transit. that's all I'm going to say about it this time. It's a new delivery mechanism. The governor's office has seen fit to provide Caltrans with that authority within his special streamlining package, and we're happy to also share that now as well. I want to highlight the combination of local streets and roads and transit within that package, and really call out Stacey Mortenson's comments in her video that she offered at the beginning of this session. You know, the self-help counties deliver multimodal transportation for local agencies throughout our state. We look forward to continuing to discuss the multimodal nature of those transportation programs, but Stacey's comments really struck home with me in that roads and rail really support each other. That can't be more true in the Central Valley. Oftentimes we seem to have individuals who like to line up in different camps. I like to talk about the fact that even though I represent 25 counties, none of their transportation systems end at the county line. They are inoperable on their own. They need to be connected to each other. And that means different systems need to have different options at different parts of our state. I also want to echo Commissioner Cruz's comments about safety. That's a number one priority. Equity, safety, climate protection. Those are all priorities that we have. We had a meeting with Director Tavares. I want to thank him for his time to discuss not only the CAPDI program, but also CSIS. He is a partner to the funding partners in the self-help county. He's always willing to listen to and accept diverse ideas and suggestions, including our requests like the commission to extend the process for participation within the CSIS program. But I really want to commend him as someone who listens to everyone, because there are many different opinions throughout the 25 regions I represent, let alone the rest of this state. He takes all those comments in. He has a team that assesses, what's best for the program and then moves forward. So I want to commend him for his partnership with the self-help counties, but also with the commission and all of us that work together to deliver a safe transportation system for our state. I would be in trouble if I didn't say, come to Focus. We're looking forward to seeing many of you. It's the end of the month in San Francisco. I look forward to seeing you all in person. I'm sorry to miss the opportunity to congratulate my good friend on his retirement, but I'm sure I'll have the opportunity soon. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Keith. Do we have any commissioners with comments or questions? We have any public comment? All right, thank you, Keith. Then we will move to tab 13, Sequoia.
Great, thank you. Great. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. All right, great, thanks. Tab 13, Commissioners, features an information and action item with updates on the Commission's interagency equity initiatives and the adoption of the Equity Advisory Committee Charter. Equity Advisory Committee member Christine Williams joins us virtually to speak to the Commission about her experience supporting the funding and development of sustainable housing throughout the state. After we hear from Ms. Williams, we will discuss the September 26th EAC meeting and introduce the charter for adoption. Christine, I'll do first a quick intro and then I'll pass it over. Christine Williams works as a senior program director for Enterprise Community Partners, a nationwide nonprofit dedicated to increasing access to opportunity through the support of affordable housing. And as a member of Enterprise's climate team, her work focuses on promoting equitable, climate-conscious housing development across the Central Valley. Ms. Williams helps communities across the state access and apply for affordable housing and sustainable communities and transformative climate communities program funds in the Strategic Growth Council under California's Cap and Trade program, where the bulk of this work focuses on developing meaningful partnerships between public agencies, including housing and transit partners, to help break down institutional silos and promote scaled-up efforts to create inclusive, community-responsive development. With that, I will pass it to Christine, who's joining us virtually. Thanks, Christine.
Thanks, Sequoia. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you to the commission for taking some comments and hearing some updates today on the Equity Advisory Committee. Sounds like there was a tour of downtown Madera held. Some of those housing units were funded with those affordable housing and sustainable community program funds. And I had the privilege to work on those projects. So excited you got to see some of the good work coming from Housing and Transportation Collaboration. All right, now for our updates. Since we formally launched in 2022, the committee has held 4 meetings. Those have been both virtual and in person around the state. I was happy to join my committee members in my own city here in Stockton, just up to 99, just last month. A lot of our initial conversation focused on context setting. So having us members get oriented to the commission, reviewing our personal stories and background around historic and systemic challenges tied to the field of transportation access and funding that ultimately led to the creation of the committee. And we've also identified a set of priority focus areas for committee members to look at content-wise, and that includes improving equitable outcomes in both state transportation planning and funding guidelines, making recommendations on improved community engagement practices. So Director Tavares' comments around Caltrans's rollout of some of those systems to consider engagement, I think are going to be of particular interest to the committee, as well as the identification of metrics for evaluating different equity benefits and outcomes across programs. So along the way, we've been extended multiple opportunities to implement some of these goals and participate in the shaping of a variety of different interagency programmatic initiatives. For example, I have weighed in on language to help make the STIP program guidelines more intentional as it relates to ensuring that regional and local transportation plans are, one, integrating, but also being responsive to community feedback received. I'm also currently on the scoring committee for the state's pilot program around reconnecting communities. So I think a lot of lessons learned there. And there have been, again, numerous opportunities extended for different informational sessions on weighing in on a variety of topics and programs. So as Sequoia mentioned, the committee had established a charter subcommittee to create a charter and present different options for establishing a governance structure. And at our recent meeting in Stockton, the committee did vote to proceed with a specific structure that includes both a chair and a vice chair, each of whom will serve for 2-year terms. This is really a significant implementation milestone. I think for a lot of us, it's been a lot of logistical work up front, but once we get this in place, it's really going to, I think, help meetings run efficiently and have clear facilitation process in place so that we can continue to really focus on the content around the priorities I mentioned earlier. So we have 2 additional meetings this year, one to be scheduled virtually in November to hold elections for the chair and vice chair positions, and then a final 2023 meeting in Riverside on December 8th. I'll pause there. I'm happy to take any questions or add additional context. I think Sequoia, I'll bounce it back to you next, unless there are questions.
Thank you, Christine. Do we have any comments or questions from commissioners for Christine? Okay, Sequoia. Oh, Carl.
Oh, I'll wait till after Sequoia.
Okay.
No, we're gonna move on to the charter, so.
And that's where I was going to.
Oh,
Okay.
Thank you.
So Sequoia, you're up.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Christine, for highlighting a lot of the work that we've been doing together. So next, we'll move on to updates from our September 26th Interagency Equity Advisory Committee meeting and charter adoption. As has been mentioned, our committee met on the 26th at the San Joaquin Council of Governments in Stockton. And prior to the commencement of the meeting, Caltrans staff also held a work group meeting focused on the development of use cases for the Caltrans Transportation Equity Index as a separate convening. And within the meeting, the Equity Advisory Committee unanimously voted to adopt the committee charter, which includes the establishment of a chair and vice chair under a minimalist structure, which consists of 1 chair and one vice chair, with the committee chair typically taking on administrative leadership functions such as agenda formation, running meetings, offering insight into policy direction to agency staff and leadership, and other administrative tasks. The committee also voted to have a discussion at our next meetings about pursuing an expanded leadership position structure for the committee. And again, an expanded leadership structure consists of one chair and multiple vice chairs, usually 3 to 5. But unlike the minimalist structure, vice chairs in the expanded structure generally take on responsibilities as directed by the charter, the chair, or the committee membership at large, if not included already in the approved charter. The charter was drafted collaboratively with a charter working group composed of 5 committee members and interagency staff from California State Transportation Agency, Caltrans, and the Commission. And has been mentioned, which I really appreciate and is very true, the development and adoption of the charter represents a major milestone for our team and our committee. And now our members have the authority to define and elect committee leaders that reflect the goals and the values of the committee. So we will hold our virtual EAC meeting in mid-November to elect our chair and vice chair, and to continue to develop the characteristics and responsibilities of members within our expanded leadership structure. And we will also have our in-person hybrid executive committee meeting, including our CalSTA secretary, Caltrans director, and commission executive director and commissioners on Friday, December 8th starting at 9 a.m. and at the Riverside Board of Supervisors meeting. So that concludes my comments on the item, and staff recommends approval of the charter as presented in attachment A of tab 13. Are there any questions on this?
Thank you, Sequoia, and congratulations to you and the EAC for reaching that milestone. Yeah, great job. Vice Chair Gardino.
Thank you. And Sequoia, you've already answered several of my questions on our commissioner briefing call on Monday, so thank you for that as well. There was only one that I think I missed during our conversation on page 4 of the charter, and great job on the charter, by the way. It talks about the purpose in Article 2. And it talks about how to achieve meaningful outcomes in transportation equity, environmental justice, and equitable economic opportunities. And then it says, especially as related to transportation planning and programming. The especially caught my eye. Does that mean the charter is broader than transportation planning and programming, or how do I interpret the especially? Yeah.
So that's language from our adopted scope that we co-developed when we started the committee. I see you unmasking. My fearless leader.
Okay, if you'd like me to take it, okay, I will take that. Especially in this context means that we are focusing in on programming and planning guidelines as a policy issue. That was one of the things that we really wanted to highlight, is where the committee could change the larger context of transportation planning and programming through our RTP guidelines. For example, you've heard from Christine several opportunities that they've had during our SB1 program guidelines to influence the larger policies that then translate into how we pick projects.
Great. Well said. Thank you both. Appreciate it. And thanks for all your work on this as well. Just for those of us planning logistics, I was excited that we get to be a part of the December 8th meeting. You said it starts at 9, roughly, if we're figuring out logistics, huh?
We're gonna try to have it be under 3 hours.
Great. Thank you.
Yes. We'll set an hour events for the 3 hour block.
Thank you.
Some people have Disneyland plans.
Yeah. Commissioner Falcone.
Thank you. And thank you, Christine, for the presentation. And I just want to echo, yeah, that is a huge milestone. Congratulations to you, Sequoia, and your colleagues at CalSTA and Caltrans, working really diligently with these members to come up with a charter. That's a huge deal. And it was a very active conversation. It was what, more than 3-4 hour meeting.
About 6.
Oh, 6
Wow.
hours. Okay, well,
Wow.
I was listening to it in the car, Mobility 21. So
Yeah.
I must have hit some traffic and hit the whole thing. So congratulations. I wanted to uplift that, that you all have been working on providing feedback on our work already. that we haven't been waiting for you to establish yourselves as a charter. And I just wanted to, if you could encapsulate, really quickly, kind of how your EAC members have been already integrating their feedback into what we're doing already.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy. I'm not connected to the internet right now, so I can't pull up.
Thank
all
you.
of
I
our-
appreciate that.
Yes. But I do have the book item. There's a lot of information in our book item and our previous book items, but you're right. There has been a lot that folks have done, and I can, let's see. So in addition to the EQI working group that was convened before the last meeting, we've had briefings on STIP guidelines language, as Christine mentioned. We've had folks working on helping check out and evaluate funding applications for SB1. I think Reconnected Communities. Off the top of my head, those are the ones that stand out the most. I know that CalSTA has offered briefings on transit and other elements of importance within transportation policy and funding. Oh yes, members have also supported the scoring of the program that provides, I think, electric buses and vehicles for, folks with disabilities. A lot of things. We've been busy. I can't keep it all in my head.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Sequoia. I just wanted to, to make sure that we highlight that because you have,
Thank you.
you all been working really hard. And so, thank you.
And maybe one thing to add what Sequoia said to your last point, Commissioner Falcone, is that at that December 8th meeting, that is one of the things that will be a highlight is what has the committee done? What are their proud moments? What are some growth edges? So that we're continuing to grow and the committee is continuing to get what they need out of this and that we're continuing to kind of have a look back to see what we've done and then set a look forward to see where we go next.
Thank you,
And if I
Commissioner.
may, really, one more thing, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to also, highlight the leadership when Commissioner Norton was chair. I do believe that the EAC was established during your chair membership, and I was just coming in and I was coming in fresh, and that was the most exciting part of being part of the commission. So I just wanted to really quick shout out to the chair at the time, Chair Norton, for the establishment of it, and for the commission for support.
Well, that's a good segue.
Yeah, right.
Commissioner Norton.
I'm really excited about where this is headed. I want you to all know that statewide, this has been a topic of discussion because of the pride that we all have, not just with the Strategic Growth Council and CTC and Caltrans and the governor's office, really pulling together and uplifting equity to where it needs to be. But I wanted to also talk about the fact that co-powerment was discussed in a number of forums about why equity and the lived experience and the fact that we're sharing this information is really coming to the forefront as we're looking to plan and score and highlight projects. I also wanted to highlight where the compensation is, and I wanted you to talk about that because that is a big deal. And not only what the compensation is, but also what factors, what the members can be compensated for, because I think that really says a lot about how we're elevating the importance of people's time and their participation and what that means to us throughout the state about how we value people's presence. And I'm hoping we can, look at people have talked about supporting, in community meetings, childcare, adult care, meals, things like that. But at least for now, while we're working within the guidelines of what's possible, I heard these. Yes. That being able to compensate people for their time has a lot of meaning. And so I wanted to know if we could go through that a little bit.
Sure,
And thank you, Commissioner Falcone and Commissioner Eager for your commitment and belief in the voices of everybody who's participating in this meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to touch on that. I'm really proud of being able to offer our members compensation for, attending meetings, and being our featured speaker, or, supporting with the many multitudes of asks that we have among our interagency priorities. And I know that a lot of other agencies are looking to implement a similar procedure for their advisory committees, and are in conversation with us. I have many conversations about our process, and I think we can kind of help shape the way for bringing action and reality into some of our dreams. But the way we've been able to do it so far is we were able to acquire a grant from the Resources Legacy Foundation to get us through year one, and that was very helpful, and we are still utilizing it. And within that time, it gave us a bit of some breathing room to come together as a team and build out a budget change proposal request that enabled us as a state agency to provide funding to members for their work in a similar way that we're able to provide compensation to commissioners, and it's kind of tied in a similar vein. So for that, we're able to offer $100 per kind of activity or meeting. And we're working to onboard folks through our HR process and get them all in the system, so that when we're all done with activities, they're able to kind of do like a timesheet and have approved and funded. So that's where we're at. We've, I think, had a big success of being able to do that, because I don't know a lot of other agencies who, without having it already in statute, were able to do that. So.
Yeah, that's great. We love your statement that you're realizing the dream.
Yes.
So thank you for all your work. Commissioner Liu.
Yeah, I'd like to congratulate Sequoia and the agency and the district for this, and move that we approve the charter as proposed.
Second.
Do we have any other discussion? Do we have any public comment?
Never seen a public comment.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and congratulations.
Yes.
Thank you. Tab 14, Justin.
Good afternoon, commissioners.
Oh, that might not be. Okay,
Better.
I'll try.
All right, tab 14 is the update on state and federal legislative matters. Yeah, see if our cell folks are getting us. The Senate Assembly adjourned for interim recess on September 14th, and the governor had until October 14th to sign or veto any bills on his desk. Of the 3 bills introduced this year that implement commission recommendations, 2 were passed by the legislature and signed by the governor. In August, the commission delegated authority to the executive director to take positions on bills through the remainder of the legislative session, but that authority was not exercised this year. The yellow replacement item in your packets includes the final outcomes for the bills tracked by commission staff this year. There are 2 bills I'll highlight that were signed that directly impact the commission. First, Assembly Bill 251 by Assemblymember Ward implements one of the commission's annual report recommendations from last year, stemming from the increased number of injuries and fatalities among vulnerable road users related to the growing size of passenger vehicles. This bill requires the commission to convene a task force to study the costs and benefits of a weight-based fee on those vehicles to offset their safety impacts. Assembly Bill 744 by Assemblymember Juan Carrillo requires the commission to develop a proposal to procure data modeling and analytic software tools for use by local agencies and other state agencies that help support the state's sustainable transportation, congestion management, affordable housing, efficient land use, air quality, economic, climate change strategies and goals. Staff will be seeking resources in next year's budget to implement these bills. The governor also signed legislation to extend the authority of state bodies and advisory bodies to meet development through 2025. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Justin. Do we have any comments or questions for Justin? Yes, Commissioner Falcone.
Yeah, quick question, Justin. It just kind of dawned on me. What is the timeline of the ward legislation?
I believe we are required to submit the report by 2026. I'll verify that.
I'm just kind of thinking of the work that we're doing on SB 21, and if some of that work is able to be somehow integrated with your work.
Yeah, I think our intent with quotation in the early stages is to leverage as much work as we're already doing in other work streams, and then either identify work that we've done already that we know that process, or identify new areas of research that we can tap into. So academia to help us fill those gaps.
Any other comments or questions?
No, I just want to appreciate Justin's work over the course of the year of keeping this commission apprised of developments in the capital. I know how tough it is to track those bills on a daily basis. But I guess my follow-up question would be, you know, the governor was successful over the course of the budget to pass a package of bills that would streamline projects and allow the state to leverage more infra dollars. Do you foresee we seeing any movement as far as being able to capitalize on those changes in the near term, or is it further out?
I think I might defer to Tanisha on that one. I'm not sure about specific program impacts of those changes, but
I think it's going to be a bit of a mixed bag, right? Because there's some CEQA streamlining things that limit the time for litigation and discovery, and some of those things, we will see those. It will depend on litigation as when we see those, right? We know this is a litigious state, and so we will see some shrinking of that timeline for projects that are litigated. That will help kind of move it forward. We will also see long-term impacts, because we know if there are delays at the front end, then they get compounded over time. And so it'll be a mixed bag, if I'm honest. Some will be kind of immediate that we see, some will be 6 months from now, some will be a decade from now.
Thank you.
Do we have any public comment? Okay, thank you. Then you're still up, Justin, for budget and allocation capacity.
Madam Chair, there was an action item, are we not taking any action?
No, there was no action. I was told. There's no action.
Commissioners, tab 15 is an informational item. Keith Duncan from Caltrans Budget to present the item on budget and allocation capacity.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Good afternoon, happy Wednesday. Keith Duncan, Caltrans Division of Budgets. Tab 15, the budget and allocation capacity, with a goal of being brief. Someone said I don't know how to be brief, so we'll work on that. Next slide, please.
We have faith in you.
Well, I'll have faith in myself. As noted in your agenda materials, as well as the slide before you, through August, the commission has allocated roughly $3 billion on 270 projects. That represents about 19% allocated on the 16.1 billion across all programs within the commission's purview. So great start. This is a little higher than last year, so that's a good way to go. Next slide, please. This is an update regarding Caltrans activities related to G12 delegated authority. That is the delegated authority by the commission to the department to be able to make adjustments to project allocations within certain thresholds. In total, through July, the department has made 21 adjustments to 21 projects with a total value of $300 million. And those adjustments. What's that? Oh, okay. I was getting kicked out. I'm not being brief. Net increase about $4 million. Against material is in your agenda material. So we'll get there. Next slide, please. Acting Administrator, FHW Administrator Alyssa Canova already touched on August redistribution. Something to be proud of, $718 million for California. That's a great accomplishment, the highest we've ever seen. Next slide, please. Again, just a couple slides just to kind of share that great amount. This slide just showing a bar chart over the last 10 years, how we've progressively gotten much greater in our return. We received about $200 million in 2014 and increased to about $718 million. Next slide, please. And here, because we are so competitive in the state of California, just to show a 10-year accumulation of California has received a total of about $4 billion through August redistribution. The next highest state is Texas at $3.5 billion. So again, a great job by all of us in California, state and local agencies for August redistribution. Next slide, please. Brief look ahead again. Alyssa did a great job talking about the start of the federal fiscal year, the continuing resolution, The only hint one thing we do want to clarify, that we do get a lot of questions when there's a continuing resolution. Caltrans does not delay projects because we don't have the full year's appropriation. We continue to deliver our projects. We use state funds, and then when we do get the full year's appropriation, then we can swap it out. So we are not delaying projects in regards to that. And then from a budgetary perspective, us budget geeks look forward to January, when the governor will release the Jan 10 budget for the upcoming fiscal year of 24-25. Next slide, please. With that, I want to thank CTC staff, Caltrans programming, as well as our Caltrans budget team, $16 billion to allocate this year. That takes a lot of effort. So the teamwork is greatly appreciated, and I'm available for any questions you have.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions from commissioners? Do you have any public comment? Okay. Thank you, Keith. Tab 16, draft clean freight corridor efficiency assessment. Kayla.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, commissioners. Today, I will be giving you a brief overview of the completed draft SB 671 assessment. Next slide, please. Senate Bill 671 required the commission to identify the following topics in the Clean Freight Corridor assessment. Freight corridors or segments of corridors throughout the state that would be priority candidates for the deployment of zero-emission, medium, and heavy-duty vehicles. The top 5 corridors or segments with the heaviest freight volume and near-source exposure to diesel exhaust and other contaminants. Projects that would achieve the goals of the assessment and potential sponsors and funding opportunities. Barriers and potential solutions to achieving the deployment of zero-emission, medium, and heavy-duty vehicles. The impact on roads and bridges due to the increased weight of zero-emission vehicles, methods to avoid displacement of residents and businesses on the freight corridors when considering projects, and benefits of the zero-emission transition. Next slide, please. Part 1 of the draft assessment identifies and defines priority corridors. There are 2 types of priority corridors identified in the assessment. The first type is the top 6 freight corridors. We base these corridors on Freight Analysis Framework truck volume data. As a reminder, the top 6 freight corridors are I-5, I-15, Route 99, I-10 and I-710, I-40 and I-80, and I-580 and I-80. The top 6 corridors are the basis of the initial viable network. It's also important to note that State Route 58 is a key connecting link under I-40. Next slide, please. Part 1 also covers the 34 priority corridors that were identified by the SB 671 work group. These corridors are necessary to support efficient goods movement across the state. By identifying the 34 priority corridors and the top 6 corridors, we are providing a starting point for short and long-term zero-emission infrastructure planning. Next slide, please. In part 2, we estimate clean freight infrastructure needs. As a reminder, we created 3 potential scenarios of potential zero-emission truck adoption. Each scenario looks at a different possible split between battery electric trucks and hydrogen fuel cell electric trucks. We estimated the zero-emission infrastructure needs statewide, but the assessment focuses on the publicly accessible zero-emission infrastructure needed near the top 6 corridors. This is called the initial viable network. California needs the initial viable network of charging and hydrogen fueling stations to support the implementation of CARB's advanced clean trucks and advanced clean fleet regulations. Next slide, please. Part 3 of the assessment provides a funding outlook for the transition to zero-emission infrastructure. We found that if we are focusing on the initial viable network of publicly accessible stations, we have enough public funds in existing grant programs to provide public funding for the initial viable network in 2025. It will cost between $10 and $15 billion to build the initial viable network of publicly accessible stations needed for 2035. This cost should be funded from all fund sources, including public, federal, and private funds. This section of the assessment also covers individual station cost estimates. Next slide, please.
I'm going to jump to part 5 and then we'll go back to part 4 to end the presentation. Some additional factors that we touch on in the assessment are as follows. There is an estimated $18.6 billion in savings of statewide health spending and an estimated 1,720 lives saved as a result of less emissions through 2040 because of the advanced clean fleets regulation. Zero emission trucks are heavier and will increase pavement damage. Because of weight, fleets may be required to move the same amount of cargo with more trucks. It is recommended that Caltrans develop policies necessary to address this challenge. We want to avoid displacing residents and businesses. The assessment acknowledges that Caltrans has existing guidance designed to avoid displacement and recommends the central delivery team engage with local equity leaders during planning. The transition to zero emission trucks will impact the workforce. The assessment identifies existing training programs and recommends the central delivery team help educate impacted stakeholders about existing resources. Next slide, please. In part 4, we identify key barriers and corresponding solutions to the zero emission transition. These are categorized by time, cost, and a complex ecosystem of stakeholders. Next slide. So the draft assessment includes a total of 17 recommendations related to the transition to zero emission infrastructure. I'm going to highlight them in the final 2 slides. We are recommending that the legislature should allocate available public funds where feasible to support the 2035 initial viable network. State agencies should also create a central delivery team to coordinate state and local stakeholders to implement next steps. State agencies should also create a set of standardized station development models that can be replicated. The legislature should enact a categorical exemption from CEQA for zero emission freight charging and hydrogen fueling stations. The legislature should set a statutory default local permit approval deadline for zero emission freight charging and hydrogen fueling stations. State agencies should combine and sequence station development where feasible. State agencies should continue electric infrastructure planning efforts. Next slide, please. The legislature should create a limited term truck incentive program for fleets of all sizes. The legislature should create a truck buyback program. State agencies should explore funding for infrastructure near the California-Mexico border. CARB should create a low carbon fuel standard provision for all medium duty and heavy duty zero emission stations. State agencies should designate a central delivery team lead, identify state and local leads, include advocates in planning and implementation, and network with existing training programs. Caltrans should evaluate the impacts of heavier zero emission trucks on the state highway system and develop solutions to address these impacts. And state agencies should assess where additional microgrids may be installed as a transportation system resiliency feature. Next slide, please. Finally, we'd like to give a special thank you to our SB 671 work group members who have helped us complete this report. The public comment period is currently open until October 26th, and we will address and consider each comment received, and we plan to post the final assessment in mid-November in preparation of the December commission meeting. That concludes my presentation. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Kayla. Do we have any comments or questions from commissioners? Okay, Commissioner Falcone. Never.
Not for this. I just, thank you, Hannah and Kayla, for all your work. I just feel like we've come along really long together since we started talking about, especially the border issues a couple of years ago. And I just want to express on behalf of the region in San Diego that their thanks. They asked me to share that with you, that you both have been, and the team have been really wonderful to work with on this. So thank you. The only thing I wanted to ask is on the workforce, we talk about the infrastructure. I'm interested about what it's going to take on the workforce side. You mentioned community colleges on the report and reskilling workers to be prepared for transitioning to the EV infrastructure or the ZEV infrastructure, whatever direction we take on that. Can you kind of talk a little bit about what that's going to take?
Thank you, Commissioner Falco. I'm going to hand it over to Hannah Walter.
Let's talk about.
Okay. So honestly, I think it's going to take more collaboration, connections, like more formalized state agencies and the community colleges that are offering those kind of programs. And I don't have a good sense yet of the time frame in which we need to scale up the training, like because it kind of is related to the transition of the workforce. So we need to have a better understanding of when that's going to happen to know how fast it's going to happen. But there are some really good existing programs out there, and you're probably aware that Port of I can't remember if it's the Port of Long Beach or LA right now. It's slipping my mind, but is it LA? I think it's LA. Has that really good training program that's on site, and they have like a hands-on kind of training program to help workers learn how to work on zero emission trucks. So we need to get more programs like that started. But it's an area where I feel like logistically we need to do. I want to learn more as we move toward trying to implement some of these recommendations, and so we just need to take more time with the contacts that we've established to figure out a plan.
I just want to ask one thing. So what's been the process so far to collect that information about the training programs across the state? Because I know of quite a few that weren't listed. So how do we get that information?
Yeah, well, I think that's a good point. We have some, the ones that you saw listed are the ones that were on our work group. And we also talked, we had some meetings with the California Workforce Development Board as well to try to see what they thought that the needs were. And we talked to the CEC about some of the training programs they have. That's mainly the work we did. There was in particular the community colleges that were on our workforce, on our work group. We talked to them, but we could probably do more.
Oh, okay. She was going to say something, but you said it. Yes, I think that'd be wonderful because I think the community colleges, there's 3 or 4 local ones right here in the valley that are have those programs right here. One right down the road, not too far. Another one in Fresno, and I know Bakersfield. So I know there's quite a few right around here. And the fact that I know those, that means there must be many more across the state. So it'd be great to collect that.
Okay, will do.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Just a comment. Obviously excited about the possibility of incorporating, zero emission and EV clean freight systems into California's logistics industry. Obviously, especially in the Inland Empire and the Central Valley, where a lot of truck traffic is now taking place in those communities affected. We would embrace the technology. And I know that the technology shifts are happening so fast. And just because I come from labor, I also understand that demand and investment will drive the apprenticeship in the workforce. So we're excited with the new hydrogen investment in California. I think that will drive a lot of the discussion about ramping up apprenticeship programs to handle, the infrastructure needed to be put in place. But it's going to be a lot of really good paying jobs too in those areas that can complement some of the logistics activities that go on. So again, thank you for your work, and we look forward to being a part of it as we move forward.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Norton, yes.
Yes, first I want to commend you on just the process, that this process of participation was one of the broadest processes. And I think it's really not only the whole of government, but also the private sector. We've just gotten so many compliments on how this participation has happened. I also want to thank Commissioner Liu, for putting together a really important tour and opportunity to hear from the community about the 710 and the need to move quickly towards getting to zero emission and creating jobs in the local community from the very communities that have been suffering with particulate matters and emissions. And so I was wondering, what is the process now that we have gotten the hydrogen hub money and that, you know, California is one of the most innovative states in the nation. You know, we signed the Paris Accords. What is the process by which you're going to take all of that innovation and accelerate how those projects can start to happen, the job training can start to happen, the sites can be identified for charging and fueling, the pipelines can start moving forward? It just feels that there is so much desire to get started and there's so much need from the community to address the harms that have happened in the past. Can you talk about that and then how we're going to embed the observations you've been making in the SB 1121 plan for the 10-year infrastructure plan, especially the needs of the heavier vehicles and what that's going to do to accelerate the damage and what we're going to have to do on the state of good repair side? And I know that was a lot, but.
Okay, go.
Yeah.
I know.
6 minutes.
That's a lot, but I feel like we're well positioned. Okay, so on the, one thing is that we're gonna put the recommendations that you saw into our annual report to the legislature. And so for the legislative recommendations, we're hoping that some of those will go through the legislative process, and that will help. And then for the state agencies, we already have a really good collaboration with GOBIS, CARB, the CEC, the CPUC, and Caltrans, and CalSTA to work together on this zero emission vision. And we already have like our own kind of sub-working group that meets about it. And so that group can work with the strike team that the governor established to focus on infrastructure and start to think about what next steps are, especially the state agencies' recommendations that you saw on the board up there. And then I think we need to work with our community-based organizations and our advocates and start to talk to them now and make sure that we have a process in place. I know that we're recommending a categorical exemption to CEQA, but that doesn't mean that we want to circumvent the process of working with our communities. We want to be intentional about hearing their concerns. So we need to work with them on a process that makes them feel comfortable. And then we need to start looking at specific geographic areas, the land use, the existing plans. SANDAG, San Diego Association of Governments, has a really good plan out right now that has like, well, it might be in draft form still, but it has criteria for zero emission station locations that is really good. So we also need to start working with the regional agencies to look at what planning they're doing already and then start like identifying priority locations, community concerns, and then where we want to focus our investments. So that's kind of like the next steps that we need to do.
I want to also thank Hector De La Torre from the Gateway COG for helping to coalesce that 7-10-10 corridor, and that I want to thank you for embedding that as one of the 6 priority corridors.
Yes, Commissioner Liu.
Yes, Hannah, thank you for that answer. And I think the really important thing I heard was the foresight to know how important it is to work with the communities. We have to recognize that these facilities are likely to go into those very communities that have been most impacted throughout the state, and how important it is. I've worked with environmental justice communities for 33 years, and they're really good at saying no. It's really hard for them to say yes to things. But we have had a process along the 710 corridor led by Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator, Lacey, where they reached out to those community groups and organizations, those EJ groups, and they came to an agreement on where heavy-duty EV charging infrastructure should go along the corridor, which I think is a really great case study and a really great best practices on how we want to move forward. So thank you for thinking about the importance of having community support for this, because if they end up saying no, it can slow the whole process down, and we know how important it is to move it forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Liu. Any other comments or questions from commissioners? Do you have any public comment?
Yes, we got public comment this time. would call on Sophia Rafikova.
Yes, good afternoon, Commissioners. Sophia Afikoa with the Coalition for Clean Air. We're grateful to have been given the opportunity to participate in the SB 671 work group meetings, and we support the draft assessment. We appreciate the draft assessment's strong focus on ensuring that progress in building zero-emission infrastructure doesn't come at the cost of harming California's communities. In particular, we support the language to encourage the rerouting of trucks away from near-freight communities, avoid resident and business displacement, and involve environmental and air quality stakeholders in the planning and development process as soon as possible. With 72 million people in the U.S. currently living near truck freight routes, it is important that their voices are represented in important decisions that impact their health. We also support the recommendations in the report to streamline the zero-emission infrastructure permitting process. As the report highlights, implementing this assessment will reduce air pollution by 53% by 2040 and potentially avoid 1,720 premature deaths. These strong public health benefits, combined with the governor's mandate to reach 100% zero-emission medium and heavy-duty vehicles by 2045, show that we cannot afford to wait on implementation, which is why we support the recommendation to expedite the charging station permitting process under CEQA and NEPA. Lastly, we understand the limitation of not being able to use the low carbon fuel standard credits program to fund the construction and operation of zero-emission stations. The Coalition for Clean Air is currently working with the Air Resources Board to expand the capacity crediting provision within the LCFS, and we encourage the CTC to continue pushing for it as well. I'd like to extend our thanks once again to the CTC staff for incorporating all stakeholder voices in the development process of this assessment, and we urge for its adoption once the document has been finalized. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. Any others online?
Yes, we have a few more. Up next, we have Hector Della Torre.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. First of all, thank you to Board Member Norton for the shout out. I really appreciate that. This project was one of the very first things when I started here at Gateway. And I was surprised that the 710 freeway was not included in the initial draft. I know there was a mileage limitation, but if you looked at the 710 based on a per mile basis, it is by far has the most max truck trip counts, 108 compared to the next, it was 18. The mean truck trip counts were 46. The next was 7.5. The median truck trip count was 42 or is 42. The next was 7.6. So by all measures, the 710 is in really bad shape. So I really appreciate that the board, Director Taylor worked on this and included the 710. And it isn't just about the freeway, it's about the communities around it. I know Board Member Liu just referenced it. We have 4 of the 15 AB 617 communities along this corridor. The 15 AB 617 community, not 617, yeah, 617 communities in all of California. 4 of the 15 are along this corridor, on the 710 corridor. As Tyson Eckerly told me recently, we are ground zero for all of the pollution from goods movement. So we need to be part of this. We are grateful that we're included in this final version. We look forward to working with you to get those resources here, the charging and the fueling resources for zero emission trucks, whether they be medium or heavy duty. We need to have them in this community because of the historic harm that we've had from goods movement. We shouldn't, as I've said many times at the Air Resources Board, and I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks in Riverside, that the folks in these communities should not have to pay with their lungs for someone to get a cheap TV in Ohio. That's not a fair trade. We need to bring these zero emission options here into this corridor and all of the corridors that you're that you have in your corridor plan. And we look forward to working with you to make it all happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Hector. Next.
Up next, we have Michael Scarlett.
Hi, my name is Mikhail Skavarla. I'm going to wear two hats today. So first, on behalf of the California Council for Environmental and Economic Balance, I just want to thoroughly thank staff for the open, transparent, and accessible process that they created. This was a significant undertaking, and the regular interactions with stakeholders and meetings, both hybrid and in person towards the end, really supported a great outcome here. And to that end, we'd like to support the recommendations and the draft report. And to any extent that the California Council for Environmental and Economic Balance can help the commission and staff on implementation with the legislature and the regulatory bodies, please let us know. And then transitioning to second hat, on behalf of the California Hydrogen Coalition, we're obviously very excited for the Hydrogen Hub, and we believe that the 671 report will support, through the report and in its recommendations, the development of the necessary infrastructure to displace diesel on our roadways and through our freight corridors. To that end, the recommendations are on point. We have had some stations stalled in permitting for over 900 days. GoBiz and recent legislation from 2022 have really helped. We've got to run fast to achieve carbon neutrality and our ambitious climate goals, as well as our transportation goals. And so to that end, we believe that this report is on point and will help us move that direction. So thank you very much to Hannah, Kayla, and all this commission staff and commissioners for such a great process.
Great, thank you. We have others?
Yes. Up next, we have Ronaldo Rudoco.
Hello, thank you very much, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm Ronaldo Brudico. I'm the founder and chief technology officer for the H2C Hydrogen Safety Pipe Company. I want to offer my congratulations to Angelina and Tyson Eckerly and all the other key players in Arches, where we are also members, for winning the $1.2 billion award for the Regional Hydrogen Hub. I also want to lend my voice of support for the bold vision of this body, which has been characterized now for a number of months as seeking a solution which is so innovative, it's literally being monitored by the capitals of Europe. And I can say that with firsthand experience. I spent a lot of time with President Macron's private staff and also in other countries, Spain, and they're looking, literally one of them, Mathieu Landon in Macron's office said to me, we don't have to worry about what to do in France. Ultimately, we'll just wait till California does it and then we'll copy them. That's a quote. And I think that what he's referring to is the unique mix that we are trying to achieve in California. There is no fight between electrons and molecules. Both are going to be required in synergy to even get close to achieving our statewide goals. I want to salute Commissioner Norton, particularly because in a meeting on April 13th, and we have an excellent 5-minute video which captured that meeting, where she championed the idea of the social justice implications of the 710 corridor, and basically said, look, if we're going to put a broadband initiative throughout the state, why don't we also consider putting a hydrogen safety pipe that can't leak and provide ways economically for all the communities along that pipeline route to benefit? We really endorse that. I'd love to share that video. If anybody wants to contact us, we'll get it for them. But because we don't see molecules fighting with electrons, but supplementing them, we believe that the statewide emission goals can and will be achieved. But the key issue that's come up already in this conversation today is it is unfair to burn the people on the 710 corridor. It's a social justice issue with air that's totally unacceptable. It's also unfair to tell them they're going to have to put up with 15,000 trucks going in and out of the Port of Los Angeles and not give those trucks, which they've decided will be hydrogen fueled, a place to refuel, so that we can get those diesel trucks off the road. And as we did at April 13th at the CARB regional headquarters, come up with a balanced solution which eliminates for the first time the penalty we've inflicted, particularly on the communities along that 710 corridor, but all the way down to Long Beach. So thank you for listening to me, and I really couldn't salute you more for the effort you're putting in. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have others online? Okay, then Shelley Kwan from LA Metro. Give it a try.
Yeah, work as good as any.
Okay, I'm Shelley Klein, speaking on behalf of LA Metro. We just want to really say we're grateful for the leadership of the commission, particularly Commissioners Liu and Martin, and also for the engagement of Commissioner Anthony Walter in DC. To help us elevate the I-710 as a top 6 rate corridor in draft assessment. We think that the draft assessment in its current form is an early win for the communities along 710, who, throughout the comments today, have made clear the extent to which air quality, public health, and quality of life issues have been imposed on them by truck traffic on the 710. And it's one of the reasons why Metro partnered with the Gateway City Councils of Governments to support the prioritization of the corridor from the onset of the draft assessment, and why the 710's Long Beach East LA Task Force also supported this outcome. As we have heard, investment in the 710 is no longer about widening. Instead, Metro and Caltrans are partnering to create an investment approach to identify projects in and around the corridor that are technical and sustainable. So this planning process is still ongoing, but we've already identified some early mobility priorities for which we're pursuing, reconnecting communities grants. Another very clear priority is the desire for a zero-emission goods movement corridor. We suspect that this is going to require a combination of electric charging and hydrogen fueling and production, and also a lot of money. So we are really grateful that the commission is helping to ensure that the SB 671 assessment positions the 710 to receive future funding opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you all so much for all your wonderful work. We applaud you. Yes. We're going to go ahead and move on to tab 17, the draft 2024 RTP guidelines. Bridget.
Thank you, Chair Eager.
Oh, there you are.
Okay. Commissioners, tab 17 is an informational item to present the second draft of the Regional Transportation Plan Guidelines for Metropolitan Planning Organizations and the first draft of the Regional Transportation Plan Guidelines for Regional Transportation Planning Agencies. Both types of agencies prepare regional transportation plans, but they have different requirements in state and federal law, hence the different versions. Both versions of the draft 2024 Regional Transportation Plan Guidelines were posted on the Commission's website on October 6th for a 30-day public comment period. New proposed language is shown in bold text and yellow highlights. Since the Regional Transportation Plan Guidelines were last adopted in 2017, there have been minimal changes in federal law affecting regional transportation plans and no changes in state law. However, our technical work groups have been working hard to update specific areas of the guidelines, and I'd like to highlight a few of the more significant changes. First, we have expanded references to equity and environmental justice topics. We've added tools and resources for climate change adaptation, updated information and resources for sustainable community strategies, development and implementation, added language to encourage alignment with the regional housing needs allocation, updated federal requirements for performance management, and added language to ensure consistency with the Climate Action Plan for Transportation Infrastructure, particularly Strategy 5.3, which calls out the RTP guidelines to incentivize land conservation. Stakeholders and members of the public may provide comments on the draft Regional Transportation Plan Guidelines through November 6th. Comments may be submitted via email to rtpguidelines@dot.ca.gov. Or individuals can reach out to Commission staff to schedule a meeting to discuss. We will incorporate the feedback we receive into the final draft guidelines as practicable, and we're aiming to bring this back before the Commission at the December meeting for the statutorily required Southern California hearing. And then we'll bring the final guidelines to the January commission meeting for the Northern California hearing and proposed adoption. Lastly, I would like to thank the regional agencies, state agencies, advocates, and others who have attended workshops, participated in technical work groups, and previously provided comments on the draft regional transportation plan guidelines. And I would also like to thank Myra Kimon and Garth Hopkins from Caltrans for their tremendous work effort in assisting with the guidelines update. And with that, I would be happy to take any questions or comments.
Thank you. Have any comments or questions for Bridget? We have any public comment?
Yes. I'd like to call on Sophia Rafikova.
Yes, good afternoon again, Commissioners. This is Sophia with the Coalition for Clean Air. I thank you for this opportunity to provide feedback on the second draft of RTP plan guidelines. Our organization has been an active participant in the RTP work groups, and we appreciate staff listening and incorporating our suggestions. For example, we requested that the RTP guidelines include considerations for reducing vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, to ensure that our state is on track to accomplishing the VMT reduction targets set in the scoping plan. While we do appreciate the guidelines including this by stating that MPOs may consider managing the effects of increased VMT as it relates to housing and economic developments, and MPOs may establish reduction in VMT per capita as an additional measure appropriate to the region, we would like to see stronger language in the guidelines by changing the word may to should. Multiple studies have shown that it will be impossible for California to reach its climate targets through just focusing on its transition to zero-emission vehicles, and that a focus on improving transit, biking, and walking accessibility is necessary to avoid a climate catastrophe. This means we cannot afford to wait for MPOs to voluntarily decide to reduce VMT within their regions, and should instead make it into a requirement across the state. Given that MPOs are already required to reduce GHG emissions through the SCS process, setting a similar requirement to reduce VMT will simply make it easier for MPOs to achieve the emission targets set by CARB. Additionally, it is within the MPO's own interest to reduce VMT, as it would have economic benefits for the region through reduced hospitalizations and fewer missed workdays from improved air quality, and a reduction in the number of car crashes, congestion, and road deterioration through fewer cars being on the road. We're also concerned that the language to provide childcare and compensation to public workshop attendees was removed from the previous version of the draft guidelines. This language is something that Coalition for Clean Air recommended in our response to the first draft, as reducing financial barriers disadvantaged communities face would help ensure those voices are being heard, especially on projects that affect those communities the most. A letter even outlined an example where Sonoma County conducted an assessment of fair housing and provided $10 gift cards to interview participants, which resulted in the demographics of the survey matching closely with the county's overall demographics, ensuring that all voices are being heard. We worked closely with the Equity, Engagement, and Health Work Group to ensure that this language was added to their version of the guidelines, and yet it has been removed in the second draft. We kindly urge that this language is restored so that MPOs are encouraged to reduce as many barriers to public participation as possible. Thank you to the CTC and Caltrans staff for putting this together, and we hope to continue working with them to improve the RTP guidelines as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. Do you have any other public comment?
No other comments.
Okay, thank you.
Response on that?
Yeah, if that's all right, I'd like to provide some clarifying information. And I also would like to just thank Sophia Rafikova for her engagement on this issue, working with a number of advocacy organizations. So Sophia raised 2 points with respect to the RTP guidelines. The first is advocating for stronger language for vehicle miles traveled reduction. So the regional transportation plan guidelines are particular in the Commission's suite of different guidelines in that we use our language really intentionally in the RTP guidelines. And specifically, we use the words should and shall throughout the guidelines only to refer to instances in which these are requirements in state or federal law. And so we're really careful not to use the word should when we're not citing a recommendation that's in state or federal code. So while we are not able to make the specific instances of language stronger, we have throughout the guidelines tried to add information and resources on vehicle miles traveled reduction strategies. So there is a new section, I believe, on VMT reduction strategies. And then we've also added similar language throughout the document, and I'd be happy to meet with Sophia and go over that. The other point was about the recommended language for to provide financial compensation and engagement activities. This was something that was discussed in the Equity Engagement and Health Work Group and was supported by the work group. After those work group meetings, had a lot of individual conversations with regional agency practitioners to understand whether or not this was a practice that was feasible. And what we learned from them is that almost all state and federal funding sources have limitations on what they can be spent on. And it is very challenging to provide financial compensation for regional planning activities with those traditional planning sources. So where we have instead landed is we work with them to think about other ways to reduce barriers to participating. So some of the things we've added to the engagement section are meeting community members where they are at and partnering with community-based organizations. But I think something that I'd like to continue looking into is whether we might be able to add a planning practice example to our appendix if there are any regional agencies that have been able to find a creative method to provide those sorts of financial compensation.
Writing grants. That's great.
Can I get some clarification? Is the thing with the should and shalls, I mean, I understand the shalls being linked, but are the shoulds, is that a self-imposed limitation or is that spelled out actually in statute or regulation that says that we have to do it that way?
So the shoulds are a reference to instances, mostly in state code, where it says the RTP should include X, Y, and Z. So I feel like I'm not answering your question.
Well, I'm just wondering
Maybe
if
I
there's
can-
anything that's prohibiting us from using the word should in other places.
I think maybe I can help a little bit. I think one of the things that we try to distinguish is where the commission has the authority to implement something through the law and where the legislature has to make that authority for. So even in shoulds, the commission doesn't have the authority to say that regions should. We can encourage, we can highlight, because then we start to get into rulemaking and we don't have rulemaking authority on this document.
Maybe we could change the mays and cans to, we'd be really, really happy if.
Put the word please in there.
I will say this. Similar to our SV1 guidelines, when we highlight things in the guidelines, especially as planning practice examples, the regions do follow, they do talk to each other, they talk across the regions. And so even in a can or a may, you start to see those things start to translate because of the power of the commission and the power of our purse.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Tab 18, the 710 stub relinquishment update. Finally got here. Tim. No.
But just keep talking.
It clicks on.
Great. Commissioners, tab 18 is an information item. In August of 2022, Caltrans relinquished a portion of State Route 710 to the city of Pasadena. Per the relinquishment resolution, Caltrans is to report annually to the commission on the status of the relinquished facilities. The city of Pasadena is here to present an update and overview of the progress on the State Route 710 low stub relinquishment efforts. This presentation will highlight the repurposing approach to the facility through a Reconnecting Communities pilot planning grant that was awarded to the city. I will first turn it over to Gloria Roberts, Caltrans District 7 Director, to kick off the presentation.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chair Eager. I'm making sure everybody's awake. Commissioners, Undersecretary Tolleson, Director Taylor, and Director Tavares, thank you very much. It was just over a year ago that this commission approved the resolution to relinquish a portion of Interstate 710 to the city of Pasadena. And here with us today from the city of Pasadena are the Honorable Mayor Victor Gordo and Assistant City Manager David Reyes. And Mr. Reyes will be providing the status of the envisioning of the 710 North Stub.
Thank you, Ms. Roberts, and thank you, Commission. Next slide, please. I want to talk to you about what we've done in the last year since this body relinquished the portion of the 710 in the city of Pasadena to us. I want to start by saying thank you. Thank you to the Commission, thank you to Caltrans, and thank you to all of our partners, because this is a huge endeavor, and we couldn't have even begun to think about doing this without you. So this past year, we've been very busy. The Federal Highway Administration did grant us, we were one of 2 cities in California to receive a $2 million planning grant for the Reconnecting Communities pilot program, and we're very excited to get going on that. Thank you to Alyssa and her team for continuing to help us process that. We've been working with Metro. We've received over $180 million to implement some near-term projects related to multimodal projects in and around the corridor. We are extremely focused on community and ensuring that we give agency to the folks that actually didn't have a voice when they were displaced. We'll talk more about that as we get into the slides. And we are in the process of securing professional guidance, not only to develop a history of the displacement in the city, one that we can all start from and say, this is what happened, but also to seek guidance from our experts in the transportation and engineering field, the planning field, as well as architects and others, so that we can envision, re-envision what we so affectionately refer to as the ditch in the city of Pasadena. Next slide. We are familiar with the 50 acres. So next slide. We are also thankful for Caltrans and the $5 million check that was presented to us for the maintenance of the area while we begin to plan. And we do see Ms. Roberts there along with our mayor and Councilmember Madison. Next slide. So we were lucky enough to receive a $2 million planning grant, and that was based on 4 pillars. The first one is about equity. And the second is about ensuring that we are paying attention to environmental justice. The third pillar is community engagement, and the fourth is climate resiliency. And we really put all 4 of those together in our application, and we want to make sure that that's the foundation of our planning principles moving forward. So we were lucky enough, next slide please, lucky enough to host United States Assistant Director, Mr. Christopher Coase, Assistant Director of Transportation Policy, along with we see Commissioner Norton in early April of this year. And next slide. We got to present a past vision of Pasadena that's based on planning. In the 1920s, we engaged with many other cities around the United States in the City Beautiful movement. We're very happy with that planning exercise, with City Hall, with the Civic Center that we built, with the Central Library, and the Bennett Plan. And we really consider ourselves at the forefront of planning. Next slide. But we also get things wrong. And the slide, I know that doesn't show up that well, but there are 2 pictures. The picture on the left identifies a rectangle, and within that rectangle are, according to the 1936 Planning Commission legend, areas where there are Mexican families, Oriental families, and Negro families. And if you look at the picture on the right and the rectangle on the right, you'll see this is where the 710 stub was going to be extended, where the 710 was going to connect. And this is where hundreds of homes were removed and communities were displaced. Next slide, please. The scar on the city is visible. We were and still struggle with how to reconnect, not only physically, but also to remember and understand that this was community, not only families and homes, but also institutions, churches, and businesses. And to give folks agency is so important to us. As we get to the next slide, please. The city council, well, I'll first talk about Metro. And this is so important to us because it's over $180 million, close to $200 million for projects that will increase equity, increase the road, not only for cars, but for bicycles, for pedestrians, to make the roads in and around the ditch safe, and basically get us ready to start the planning process to ensure that we can actually restitch our transportation network where the 710 expansion was planned. Next slide. Next slide. So the agency that I'm talking about is relative to a city council appointed 710 advisory group. It's a body of community members, 4 of which were direct descendants of displaced families. And this is a group that meets monthly. We've been meeting since April. The chair of that body is here today, Mr. Danny Parker. Thank you, Danny, who has committed time, resources, energy, and his skills and talents to the city to help lead this group. This is a group that we treat like any other commission. It's a Brown Act body. We post the agendas. We keep all of the data online. We invite the public to come both online and in person, and they are going to play a vital role in terms of what the vision for the project in the future will look like. Next slide. So we won't be able to do this without professional support, and we are in the process of securing that support. Both RFPs have closed, and both RFPs, I mean one for historic resources. Next slide, please. We want to look at this holistically. We want to understand what buildings were removed, what people were removed, but we also want to bring it down to a human level and get an oral history and talk to folks and get first and second and third-hand accounts of people's homes that were removed and what happened to them, where did they go, and how did they survive. And then we'd also like to understand in concert with freeway expansion in our city, because we have the 710, but we also have the 210. And that 210 history is not great either. And when we think about those freeway expansions in the context of the zoning that existed and exists, redlining, racial covenants, and other mechanisms, we want to understand what impacts those have had in totality on people of color in the city of Pasadena. And so we, in the next month, we'll be going to council with contracts to secure these very important professionals so that we can begin this work. Next slide. And that's going to set the framework and the basis for how we move forward. Understanding the past is so critical. We have to acknowledge it. We have to understand it. We all have to be of one mind in terms of what happened. But we also want to start planning for a master plan for the area, a transportation network that is fair and equitable, that is able to restitch the fabric of our community. We have the different grade separations. Trying to understand the technical challenges of doing that is going to take some time and effort and money. And so we've got challenges where we need to really ensure that we have engineers, architects, planners, transportation professionals, and then the community to help us envision what that's going to look like. And we plan on having those contracts secured in the next 2 months as well. And then finally, looking ahead, what we hope to do is to continue partnering. Next slide, please. Partnering with our stakeholders. We've talked about Caltrans. We've talked about the Federal Highway Administration. We want to really continue to engage the broader community through the 710 advisory group and provide quarterly updates to City Council, which we share with Caltrans, and then complete our 2 reports. Planning is important, and planning takes time. And to do it the right way takes a lot of engagement. And we expect that this is going to be about a 2.5-year process before we can have a master plan and then come back to you and ask for money for implementation. So with that, I'd like to, if it's okay, I think it turned over to Mayor Gordo. Is that the correct order of events, or is it questions? I'm not sure. Chair?
You can, Mayor?
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you all for your very hard work and your willingness to hang in there. Let me, Madam Chair, Madam Director, Commissioners, and staff, let me just say thank you on behalf of the city of Pasadena. I was born in Zacatecas, Mexico, and both of my parents, both of my grandparents were braceros in Madera and Fresno. And so for me, it's almost like a coming home because my father also worked in the fields as I remained in Mexico. When my parents finally sent for me and we settled in Pasadena, I was very proud of the fact of our ties to Fresno and Madera County and the field
work that my entire family, from grandparents and my father, did. So Madera is beautiful. Mr. Supervisor, you have a beautiful community, very proud of it. And from the people of Pasadena and my family, thank you for helping us. As Mr. Reyes reports, much has been done. We've been at work. I want to thank the commission, Caltrans, the Federal Highway Administration. I believe that working together, we can set the model, not just for California, but for the country. Because in the 710 corridor, we have all of the elements that are needed. Displacement, or that faces as we reconnect communities. Displacement, it's a public safety corridor leading to our hospital, Huntington Hospital, the only trauma center in the region. Social equity, opportunities for economic development right next to Old Pasadena, our great business district. Housing solutions, green space, light rail. We have what was called the Gold Line. I don't know what, I think they ran out of names, so it's the A line now. And then we have a major sports venue. And so you can imagine the challenges that we'll face connecting the Rose Bowl to all these modes of transportation and all of these major events. We're also a job center. MedTech is technology, Zencor, all of these Eli Lilly companies are coming to Pasadena to solve some of the world's health problems. We're also an education hub, so we have to connect to the Art Center, College of Design, using these various modalities. Caltech, Art Center, Pasadena City College, the Carnegie Observatories is consolidating all of their operations in Pasadena. And so we'll have to think about that in different modalities that we'll have there. But where's the transportation hub, you ask? Well, it's not lost upon us that this is an important transportation corridor as well. In fact, first and foremost, it's an important transportation corridor for the region. And so we look forward to partnering with the commission, partnering with Caltrans and the Federal Highway Administration and Metro to move people, not just cars. And I think that's the theme of today, well, almost today, is we need to work together to move people, not just cars. I think that's the takeaway. And we look forward with excitement to our partnership with all of these agencies. And on behalf of the city of Pasadena, thank you for being a great partner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just want to say, as someone coming from the Valley, I was born and raised about 20 miles from here. Welcome home. And we're proud to have you in our community. Proud to have you back.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'll pass it on to my father.
Yes, please. Do we have any comments or questions? Yes, Commissioner Norton.
I want to thank you all for coming personally. Mayor Gordo, thank you for talking about your history. I want to thank the chairman also, because I was very moved by your speech when the Reconnecting Communities Grant happened, and you were talking about what happened to your family and what that displacement was all about. And I think that your goals to have the understanding of the history, to not whitewash it, but to actually talk about where those harms happen and to really prioritize mobility reparations, economic reparations is extraordinary. And I do see this as being a national model. And I want to thank you for really digging deep in your family's harm history and to be part of the solution, to be part of a brighter future. And I just want to thank you all, because we see this as not only embedding new modes of transportation, to embed new opportunities for moving people and goods, but to also look at how we're going to empower and hire the communities that were displaced to be part of the solution. And so I look forward to the role of Caltrans. I look forward to the role of the work that you're doing in the city, but also to make sure, Director Roberts, and to make sure that the people who were displaced, that the people who are looking forward to seeing that the harms were restored, and the relinquishment turns into revitalization, and that they get to be part of the solution and to look at economic and mobility reparations as that national model. So thank you for coming today to talk about that vision. It's really extraordinary.
Thank you, Commissioner Norton. Do we have any other commissioners? Yes. Commissioner Grisby.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the mayor and your team for the presentation. I really want to have you talk about the reparative nature of the work. I assume that some of the displacement efforts of the past may have been successful. So given that a lot of those people are probably gone and won't come back, what types of placemaking or marking you might want to do to let people know who used to live there, et cetera?
Thank you, Commissioner. One of the things that we're looking at from just a land use perspective, while this is an important transportation corridor and we have to get the transportation network correct, we also want to go beyond transportation in terms of this 50 acres and have the opportunity for affordable housing, have the opportunity for economic engines, whether it's biotech corridors or others, but having a disadvantaged community, and it's true, many of the folks that were displaced are probably not around, and maybe their descendants aren't around, but it doesn't mean that there aren't still disadvantaged folks that are within the community. And so, number one, we want to make sure that there's opportunities both financially and otherwise to contribute to a plan and then to be part of that solution in terms of the implementation. We have started in the city in terms of documenting some of the history. We have a wonderful, if you're ever in the city of Pasadena, we have the mayor invite you out, but at the Parsons site right next to the 210, we have a wonderful exhibit of bronze and acrylic plaques and boards. And I believe there's also some QR codes for online digital media, but it's a walking tour that leads you to in and around the Parsons campus and starts to speak to the displaced community, the businesses that were there, the people that were there. And I think that that will be continued in this project and even on a greater scale. With 50 acres, we can do a lot and tell a great story.
Thank you.
Let me just add, I grew up next to the 210 freeway as a kid and the access road immediately across. And I understand, and I thank you for the question. And the council has put a priority on ensuring that the communities that were displaced are represented on the actual task force. That was one of the criteria that we used to ensure that we had a strong showing of people who are going to make decisions that actually are descendants of or were actually displaced. Danny Parker, chair of our task force commission, is here with us. I think I know his family was directly affected. And so that's the level of priority that we're placing on that issue. So it's a top priority for us.
Thank you. Do you have any other? Yes, Commissioner Liu.
I was just thinking, they're talking about people being in Pasadena. We have the California Transit Association conference coming up, right? I forget the date exactly. Anyone remember? No one remembers.
Soon.
So we are going to be in Pasadena, at least some of us will be. So let's maybe try to figure out something to do with that opportunity.
Well, we welcome you. We'll welcome you to Pasadena and we'll give you a tour.
I was planning on taking the A line. I don't know if it works out.
Take the I line and we'll connect you with our local transit, Pasadena First Transit.
It drops off right next to it. It's at I can't remember.
Yeah, right there.
It's in my calendar. It's there. I'll be there.
And, you know, I had the opportunity to visit with Secretary Coase, and we flew over the 710, and you can really see the appendage that was created in the separation as people were displaced. And you can see also the opportunity with, you know, setting the synergy with the neighborhoods on the west, and then also the synergies with Old Pasadena on the east, and then Huntington Hospital. So I look forward to providing a tour for all of you. And I want to give a special shout out, if I may, to our District 7 director, who is just fabulous to work with. Miss Roberts is a rock star, and
we agree.
You know, all of our partners are, but she really goes above and beyond. as all of our other partners do. Thank you.
So we're going to come to Pasadena, but you have to meet us at Pie and Burger if you don't mind.
I'm sorry?
We're going to come to Pasadena, but you have to meet us at Pie and Burger if you don't mind.
That's
Yeah.
right. I won't prioritize any one of our businesses.
Okay.
Because it'll get me in trouble. That's a good one.
We'll be there.
That's a good one.
November 15th through the 17th.
There we go.
Thank you.
And I would be happy to welcome you, and like we did with Secretary Coase, provide a firsthand visit of this corridor for all of you to see for yourself, the appendage, but more importantly, the opportunity.
Thank you. Any other comments from commissioners?
No, just wanted to also commend leadership, Mayor Victor Gordo and his team. Obviously, this is an opportunity to reconnect communities. And it looks like with the plan you have in place for affordable housing, new amenities, and also improving public safety with parks, it's going to be a great opportunity to build back and build better. And I commend the work you've done so far.
Thank you, Commissioner. And, thank you for the opportunity. I really think together we can do something special for everyone across the country to look to.
Thank you. I understand we have a public comment.
Received one written comment from Dave Walker. He writes, I am unable to stay for this item because I am currently in class, but I want to share that at the ITS California Conference in Irvine yesterday, I had challenging discussions about how freeway expansions in California are inequitable. Not everyone agrees. I want to thank today's presenter on the equity framework for the 710 corridor in Pasadena. I hope to see this framework made into something that can be applied to other corridors throughout California to be augmented to. Thank you. And that concludes all comments.
Thank you.
You have 10 seconds.
10 seconds of yours.
Councilmember Madison was on the line due to the length of the meeting. He had to drop off for another meeting, but he wanted to say thank you to this body, to Caltrans, to the Federal Highway Administration, and really looks forward to continue working that relationship. Thank you.
Tell him we look forward to meeting him at a future meeting. Thank you.
At Pie and Burger.
At Pie and Burger, yes. Any other questions, comments? Thank you. Thank you so much. I think I'll keep going. Matthew, you're up on Senate Bill 1.
Yes, I am. Commissioners, I'm going to keep talking. Tab 19 is an information item containing the Senate Bill 1 semi-annual progress report for periods January 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2023. I would like to introduce Angel Kyle, who's the division chief and the Caltrans SB1 program manager, who will be presenting this item.
Great, welcome.
Great, thank you so much. So I know we've got lots of movement and such right now, but I have good news for everybody. So I'm out here to tell a good news story. So my name is Angel Pyle, and it's a pleasure to be with you here today. I have the privilege of being the SB1 program manager for the department. So within this presentation, I'm going to go over some brief stats of the program, highlight a few projects which have completed, and I'm also going to talk a little bit about the Rebuilding California website. Next slide, please. So just a few highlights here. These are also highlighted in the report, so I won't spend too much time on this, but just a couple of things to bring to folks' attention. To date, we've invested nearly $35.7 billion of SB1 funds, supporting more than 2,500 projects. We have about $5 billion in awarded construction projects for the competitive programs. And for the shop, we have approximately $10 billion in construction in projects around the state. Next slide, please. So this is the first of the projects that I'm going to be highlighting. This is the Santa Gertrudis, and I tried to practice this too. All right, Gertrudis Creek Pedestrian and Bicycle Trail Project that was it's in Temecula. The project scope is constructed a Class 1 two-way pedestrian and bicycle trail, which connected two other Class 1 facilities, so making a longer segment. Also included an undercrossing at I-15 in the Caltrans right-of-way. So here you can see a couple of the before and after pictures. This was completed last year. Next slide, please. So another project that I'd like to highlight is in the city of Reading. So for those of you that might be familiar with it, okay, I knew I was going to try and be prepared for it and I picked up, but I didn't quite get there. So within the city of Reading, for those of you that are familiar with it, this is from West Street from Eureka Way to 7th Street. This project added bike lanes, sidewalks, made ADA intersection improvements, also planted trees as a part of this project. So we're really happy about this one, and it completed earlier this year. Next slide, please. A couple of other ones. So this is a highlight from our TSET program. So from the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program. This project was in the Port of Long Beach. It's a Cycle 1 project. This is the Pier G and J project, which constructed new mainline tracks for trains serving 4 terminals in the southeastern area of the port between and again, for those of you that might be really familiar with some of the ports there, the northeast corner of Pier G Terminal and Harbor Scenic Drive. Some of the importance of this project is that it reduced train delays, also provided greater reliability. And here's part of my favorite part of the project is that there was a 25% improvement in rail operational efficiency. So based on some of the improvements here, they're able to have 1 additional train per day so that we're moving more goods by rail. And the equivalent was a 480 20-foot equivalent units or TEUs of cargo in and out of the port daily. Next slide, please. There's a couple of things on this project to highlight. So this was Caltrans and a partnership between Caltrans and the San Diego Association of Governments. We opened 4 additional lanes of carpool lanes within the North County project. And this is represents about a 50% reduction in commute times. The project was funded by a combination of local, state, and also federal investments. And then the last thing that I want to highlight on here, and you can see it in the picture, but on the top picture here, there within the construction zone, those are orange lines. And so those are orange lines noting or orange striping rather. And this was a part of a pilot program. It's aimed to increase awareness, minimize distracted driving, and lower speeds in work zones. We're going to be evaluating this pilot and looking to expand it if it's successful. So. All right, next slide, please. So this is the last project that I will highlight, and many of you may have gone through this interchange if you went to our Sassoon or the Sassoon Commission meeting in June. So this is the District 4 I-80-680 State Route 12 interchange. So that's a mouthful. But this project replaced a few single lane connectors with new 2-lane connectors and bridge structures. It also constructed and designed to accommodate for future project phases, also a slip ramp from eastbound 12 to Green Valley Road, which provided some other access to local areas here. I only live about 15 minutes from here and frequent this area, so I can say firsthand that the interchange improvements really did improve access to the local amenities there, as well as the merging from I-80 to 680 in addition to accessing State Route 12 and going through Napa. So that's the last project that I'm going to highlight there. And then the next slide, please.
Oh, no.
I know. All right, I promise. Okay, so for
Wow.
Okay, so the last slide here, for those of you that might be familiar, this is from our Rebuilding California website. So you'll see the URL at the bottom. Doug's going to give an overview on the website later, but so it's the rebuildingca.ca.gov website. This website, it is operated and maintained by the department. This does highlight both of our SB1 and IIJA investments. We're making improvements to this constantly. So I just want to encourage everyone to take a look at the website if they have a few moments. Also check back periodically. Next slide, please. And that's the second to the last slide. Just so you know. There's lots of things that are coming up on this website. We're looking at some more map improvements, a robust project gallery so that I don't have to highlight the 6 projects individually. You'll be able to go on the website and see all of those projects and be able to navigate by area of the state or type of project. So we're looking at deploying those things later on this year, and then also a lot more multimedia content and some interactivity on the site. So with that, last slide.
Oh, no. Oh,
I know. That's it. Well, don't you guys want to know where the money goes? So that's why I'm here to tell that really great story. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that any of you might have.
That was good news. Thank you.
Yeah, so it was good news.
Any comments or questions? Do we have any public comment?
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lori, Protect Program.
Yes, commissioners, tab 20 is an information item. Marlon Flournoy, the Caltrans Division Chief for Transportation Planning, will give a presentation on the draft state climate resilience improvement plan for transportation, otherwise known as the script. The script transmits to FHWA how California has adopted and implemented the Protect program in alignment with existing state adaptation frameworks. And just as a reminder, one of our competitive programs, our newest competitive program at the commission, the Local Transportation Climate Adaptation Program, that is partially funded through Protect funds. And real quickly, the commission received 22 project nominations for that program, totaling over $388 million in funding requests.
Nice.
And the staff recommendations for that program will be released November 3rd. And with that, I'll turn it over to Marlon.
All right, thank you. I really appreciate it. Chair Eager, Director Tavares, and Undersecretary Tolleson. It's a pleasure to talk to you about today's presentation. So just getting into the background, next slide. So promoting resilient operations for transformative, efficient, and cost-effective transportation, or PROTECT in short. This is a federal aid program that was created as part of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. PROTECT's purpose is to help make surface transportation more resilient to natural hazards, through supporting of planning activities, resilience improvements, community resilience and evacuation routes, and at-risk coastal infrastructure. From 2022 to 2026, the state is expected to receive about $631 million in PROTECT formula funds to advance resilience goals through state, regional, and local projects. In addition, FHWA will be allocating around $1.4 billion in PROTECT discretionary grants nationwide. Next slide. So the PROTECT program invites state DOTs to create an optional resilience improvement plan. So the state climate resilience improvement plan for transportation, or SCRIPT, is the state's response to this optional component. It summarizes the breadth of existing climate adaptation policies, tools, guidance, and activities that have positioned Caltrans and its partners to take a systematic approach to making immediate and long-range investments to improve resilience in the multimodal transportation system. And lastly, SCRIPT demonstrates to FHWA how California has adopted and implemented the new PROTECT program in alignment with existing state adaptation policy and procedural frameworks. Next slide. So when FHWA, when they approve the script, it will reduce the state and local cost share identified in PROTECT projects from 20 to 10%. So the script has the potential to save the state, regions, and local partners a significant amount of PROTECT matching funds. In addition, inclusion in the script's project priority list will increase competitiveness of projects applying for the FHWA PROTECT Resilience Improvement Discretionary Grants. Next slide. So the script illustrates California's plan for achieving climate resilience, both in transportation planning and project delivery. This includes summarizing the state policy context driven by the legislation, executive orders, policies, and science, which will all be advancing agency adaptation planning. It also includes existing and planned transportation climate adaptation efforts. It also provides information on the foundation of existing climate resilience planning through the completed transportation vulnerability and risk-based assessments that have shaped data-driven investment decisions. And this is done through our 2019 and 2020 Caltrans vulnerability assessments and priority adaptation priority reports. It also explains the PROTECT program, how it's administered in California through state and local formula program established by Senate Bill 198. Which directs how those funds will be used. And lastly, it includes a project priority list, which I'll talk about in the next slide. So next slide. So to receive the full cost share reduction benefit, the script must include project priority list identifying the state's priority climate adaptation projects for receiving federal formula funds for pursuing discretionary funds. So in the final draft of the script, it will include the priority list identifying projects to receive the PROTECT formula funds through the state climate adaptation program. Also the local transportation climate adaptation program that Lori just had referenced. In addition, potential future projects that are seeking future discretionary or formula funds will also be included as well. Our goal is to be as inclusive as possible in this list, and we're going to ensure that future script projects meet the federal and state eligibility requirements. This list will potentially be updated periodically in coordination with stakeholders and reflect projects pursuing discretionary funds through 2026. And so we're going to make sure that we have a process for keeping that up to date. Next slide. This is my last slide. So in terms of the timeline, we're going to be accepting a public comment of the draft through October the 30th, and we aim to formally submit the final script to FHWA in December for review and approval. I do want to just take a quick moment to thank my team in the Office of Air Quality and Climate Change. They've been rock stars in terms of helping us meet our climate change goals through products like this. And I also want to thank the CTC staff for their partnership as well.
Excellent.
That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Marlon. And, this is right back at you.
Yep.
We want to thank you so much for all the wonderful work that you have been doing. We know, with these kinds of issues that, things can come at you, but you have really been a rock star in this. So we want to thank you for all of your work. Do we have any other questions or comments? Yes, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Marlon, again, excellent report, thorough and clear. And the work on resilience is just so critical to a state with coastal erosion, wildfires, unprecedented storms, et cetera. So this is even more important. Thanks for recognizing your team and your partnership with our team as well.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Commissioner Norton.
I just want to thank you for the work you're doing. Secretary Omashaki gave a shocking statistic about the 13 atmospheric rivers at Mobility 21 and said that 30 trillion gallons of water equivalent to the Mississippi River descended on the state of California. And so I want to thank you for also the work that Director Tavares is doing and you on coordinating those water resources and being able to make sure that since we're going to have water seasons now, that we actually have freeway safety, but we also have the ability to retain and reuse that water. And so I just really want to commend you and your team for what you're doing with that opportunity to have synergies with the water agencies so that we can save that water for the drought season, the fire season.
That we know we're coming.
Us. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Have any public comment? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So you have 2 minutes to do information and consent. So come on.
I'll make it
Go.
quick. All right, can you hear me?
So,
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Chair Eager. Commissioners, tab 21 through 38 are information items that have been reviewed and found to have no issues raised by Commission staff. Therefore, individual items will not be presented unless specifically requested by a Commissioner. Please also note the change list for tab 33. If there are no questions or comments, that will conclude the presentation of the information calendar.
Do you have any comments or questions on the informational?
Madam Chair, Martinez here, just on item 20.
I was like, where is that voice coming from?
Just very quickly, because I know you guys have a reception to go to, but just on 22, when will Caltrans provide information on the funding for the local agencies that were funded with CRISA, and what fund sources the state might be able to use to support those projects, which are now in limbo and waiting for Caltrans to fund them?
We can't, but maybe she can.
I'll project my voice. Okay, so Caltrans is currently, they're still performing their analysis. It's my understanding that their goal is to provide an update at the December commission meeting. But if I'm speaking incorrectly, Sujaya or Keith, please feel free to jump in and correct me if I am wrong.
Like you're good.
No one said you're wrong, so you must be right.
Great, thank you, till December.
Any other questions for information items? Okay, consent.
All right. Commissioners, tab 39 through 62 are action items listed as part of the consent calendar. Please note the change list for tab 41, 43, 57, 60, and 62. Although the change list for tab 43 specifies that 5 resolutions of necessity were withdrawn, there was an additional resolution of necessity labeled as C-22301 that was withdrawn prior to this meeting. The final change list for tab 43 will reflect that 6 resolutions of necessity were withdrawn. If there are no questions, that will conclude the presentation of the consent calendar.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions on the consent calendar? Do we have any public comment? And I will entertain a motion to accept and approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Norton,
Second.
second Cruz. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Today we are going to adjourn in memory of those 4 students in Pepperdine and their families. So if we could take maybe one moment of silence for those families and that community. Thank you. And before we adjourn, Director Taylor would like to make a statement.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's important from where I sit in the world for me to acknowledge something that bothered me today. Words and how we describe people matter, and they matter significantly. And I encourage us all to be cognizant of the words that we use to describe people. Some of the words today have been used to describe people who look like myself, to shrink us in the world and to devalue us. I want to be constructive and not destructive. My mother is very proud from where I sit in the room, and I want to use my seat at this table to make sure that we are intentional about the words we use to describe people, because it does matter. Thank you.
With that, we are adjourned. Thank you.